So I can hear you out there. I can hear you. It's a clear day. Not a lot of humidity. I went into WTHR yesterday to talk a little sports, and I heard Sean Ash say that the humidity was at 13%, and I thought 13, perfect number for where I'm sitting right now, and perfect number when it comes to humidity, because I love when there's no humidity. Air's crisp, it's clean, it's easy, and you can hear from miles away, right? Nothing blocking the airwaves right now as I'm talking to you. You can hear me. I can hear you, folks. I can hear you. And I can hear what you're saying with what I'm about to say. You're saying, it's a Wednesday. I'm tuning in to Query and Company on the Fan because the Colts are getting ready to take on the Raiders coming up this weekend. And I want to know if Kenny Moore's practicing. He is not, by the way. You're saying it's a Wednesday and the Colts are getting set for the Raiders, and I'm listening to the radio because I want to hear Chris Berman say this. Raiders! And I want to know if Alec Pierce is practicing. He's not. I take that back. He is going to go through a little bit of practice, but you want to know if he's out of the concussion protocol. He is not. He is still in the protocol. Okay? There are others, Eddie, that people are wanting to know if they're going to practice, but as of right now, they are still on the sidelines watching, correct?
I wonder what the status of Mr. Matt Gonzalez is.
Funny you should ask. He is to be determined once they evaluate as he tries to go through practice this afternoon. Anybody else you're curious about?
A guy that I brought up, was it Monday to Chap? Or certainly last week to Stephen Holder during the conversation, Jalen Carlisle.
Oh, yes.
He's eligible to come off injured reserve this week.
And thank you for asking. That is one of them that also is still being determined, and there is no actual determination on him.
So the sounder we would use for that is?
Correct. Now, I can hear you folks. And we're going to talk to somebody with boots on the ground out at West 56th in just about 10 minutes.
Is it boots or shoes?
This case, boots, because I saw him earlier today, James Boyd.
Oh, he's wearing boots?
He is.
Fancy.
So, you're wondering all of those things, and we're going to get to all of those things. And I can hear you asking those questions, and then I can hear you saying, am I really tuning in on a Wednesday at noon to listen to this guy tell me about the Colts, hoping that he tells me about the Colts, hoping that we get to all of that, and he's talking basketball? And my answer to you is yes. For a few minutes, I'm going to. Not because it is media day for the Horizon League at Lucas Oil Stadium, and the Horizon League's based right here in Indianapolis. Not because the Final Four is going to be at Lucas Oil Stadium, and now we know the women's also will be moved to Lucas Oil because of ticket increase, and not because all three divisions, first 1, 2, and 3 in the NCAA, are going to crown their champions this year in the city of Indianapolis. That's not why we're talking basketball. Not because Tyrese Halliburton said at the beginning of the week, this has been an unbelievable year for Indiana sports, and I feel like we jump-started all that. And not because perhaps that jumpstart that Tyrese Halliburton did is the reason why people are excited to see what Indiana's going to do after their bye week when they go to Oregon, or what Purdue might be able to do coming up against Illinois or Notre Dame. None of those things. I'm going to talk basketball for a few minutes for this reason. And I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. As I've gotten older, I've grown to appreciate more things that perhaps I did not when I was a kid. And one of those things is when you're a younger person, and in particular sports in general, and I think we've lost sight of this. I think we now live in this culture and this society where, when I was a kid, I was convinced I was going to go play basketball at Indiana. And I was convinced, I sat out in the driveway like most kids, and I shot baskets till the cows came home, man. And I loved the game of basketball. And when I played the game of basketball, I, like most kids, because I had worked so much on my game individually, when I finally got into a situation where I was playing team basketball, it was difficult for me to know that there were players that were better scorers than I or better rebounders than I, and that my role might have been more as a screener or as an auxiliary, like an Aaron Nesmith type, a guy that could score but also could defend, whatever else. And I had to do what I could to keep myself on the floor. And as a young player, that was a difficult thing to learn, and maybe I didn't even learn it until retroactively. But I now can understand and appreciate the things that I learned in life through sport and the things that have benefited me as an adult that I learned in sport. And I think that we now live in a culture and a society where, based on youth sports that have turned into travel sports and big-time business, and parents are paying money out the wazoo for travel and gear and individualized coaching and all of those things, that we have gotten away a little bit from the team aspect of things for young people and epicentered and focused too much on the individuality of sport and glory and likes and everything else that comes with society today. And yes, I can be an old person on the lawn and yell at those things, or I can simply say, I'm just going to enjoy sport for what it's, what's that?
An old person?
Yes. Thank you. I can be that guy, right? Or I can be somebody that looks at it and says,
back in my day,
I'm going to, as I always say, squeeze the juice out of life and enjoy the moment. And so I love it when sport creates opportunity to not only allow me the confluence of enjoying sport and living in the moment, but at the same time reinforcing those lessons that sports create and that young people can look at and learn from. And that is why on this Wednesday, when we are going to talk about the Colts and when we're going to talk about Indiana and we're going to talk about Purdue, we're going to begin today by talking about what I witnessed last night, which is one of those things that as you're watching it, you say to yourself, this is something special that I think everybody hopefully is soaking in. And I'm not talking about Shohei Ohtani hitting a home run to immediately let the Reds know who is still the king in the National League. I'm not talking about the Red Sox getting a win over the Yankees. I'm not talking about the Cubs going up 1-0 on San Diego. I'm talking about the Indiana Fever. Yes, the WNBA Indiana Fever. And yes, they lost. And yes, their season's over with. But you know what? I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a CEO of a company. I don't care if you're a kid averaging 26 a game that's a 5-star recruit. I don't care if you are somebody that just goes into work and punches a time clock in anonymity every day. Or most importantly, what I do hope is that you are a 9-year-old kid, a 10-year-old kid, or the parent of one of those that witnessed what we saw last night. What we saw last night in this town was special. What we saw last night in this town was something that we all can say to ourselves, why not Indiana? And I love the fact that the Fever are the Indiana Fever and represent this town and this community. Because this is a franchise that at the beginning of the year, what we knew was that they had the most famous female player on the planet in Caitlin Clark. What we knew was that they had this complementary of pieces, some of which, Aaliyah Boston, a number 1 overall pick, Sydney Colson, Ari McDonald, Sophie Cunningham, Chloe Bibby, Kelsey Mitchell, all of these different players over the course of the year. But at the beginning of the year, what we knew was Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell. Let's take those big three. And Sophie Cunningham, the addition. And over the course of the year, that franchise suffered immeasurable and almost in just at times never-ending setback. Yeah, not setback like you lost your house, not setback like someone in your family passed, not setback like you have a major illness. I get that. But relative in sport, Caitlin Clark goes down and you wonder forever how long it's going to be before that means out, and then you find out for the year. Sydney Colson, Ari McDonald, Sophie Cunningham, Chloe Bibby. The list goes on and on of players that were unavailable. And yet every single time that a player went down, that franchise managed to either find another player on the roster or a player from outside the roster to plug in and carry out what it was that they needed. And they went in last night in a Game 5 against the Las Vegas Aces, a team that is looking to win, its third title in 4 years? Is that right?
Go to the finals for the third time in the last 4 years.
And so, but multiple titles for Las Vegas. A team that was a 2 seed and the Fever were not.
5 Olympians on their roster.
And the all-time leading scorer in Indiana high school history on their roster. And you're going on the road, after already having in this postseason won 3 times when your back was against the wall and you were in an elimination game, and those 3 wins, the most for a team in a postseason since 2022. And the Fever last night go into that game, and they get down and they claw back, and they get down and they claw back, and then Kelsey Mitchell goes down. And Kelsey Mitchell goes down, and Stephanie White says to her team, there is no one better equipped for this than we are. You need to win for your teammates. You need to play for your teammates. You need to make plays for your teammates. Yes, for Kelsey Mitchell, but also for Caitlin Clark, and also for Sydney Colson, and also for Ari McDonald, and also for Sophie Cunningham, and also for Chloe Bibby, and on and on and on. And for those that are on the floor right now, you need to make a play for your teammates, because everybody else thinks we're out, but we don't. And the most important thing is not what the rest of the world thinks, but what we think. And we try to teach our kids at a young age, when they are facing situations like not getting picked on the dodgeball team or having a bully that doesn't invite them to lunch, whatever it might be. We try to tell kids at a very young age, it's not about what other kids are telling you about what shoes you're wearing or what your hairstyle looks like. The most important thing is that you believe in yourself. And we try to tell people at a young age that, yes, while it's important to be the best athlete you can be, the best student you can be, the best teammate you can be, the best person that you can be, sometimes it takes collectively other people to come together for a common cause, and you need to figure out what your role is in that. And what we saw last night was something that, yeah, I get it. The WNBA is not the level of popularity of the NBA. I get it. The WNBA is not the level of popularity of the National Football League. And yes, the Colts have their moments where they make us proud. And yes, the Pacers had an entire postseason where they make us proud. But what we saw last night in Las Vegas was the fact that you had a group of players that every single time, every one of us, whether you followed it peripherally, whether you followed it because you turned on the radio to hear whether or not Kenny Moore was available and the guy is actually talking about the WNBA, whatever level of knowledge you have of the WNBA, what you do know is this: you don't have to be an expert about that team, that league, or any of it to watch that and say to yourself, what I'm seeing before me right now is a professional basketball team giving an example of what it takes to be the best version of you, by being selfless and by looking around and saying, what can I do here? And in any walk of life that you're in, if you're listening to my voice right now on a lunch break, getting ready to go back to the architecture firm, if you're on a lunch break as a teacher, if you're on your way into the second shift at the store you work, whatever it might be, there are always those moments where you have to look around and say, how can I make the best of this situation? And sometimes that means figuring out what the best of the situation is for the other person you're with, combining your two efforts and putting it in the best. And last night, what we saw from the Indiana Fever, they did not win that game. They did not. But they won in terms of what's represented to be the best in terms of sportsmanlike competition, because they reached deep down and they literally got every single last good to the last drop. They should have been sponsored by Maxwell House, because that program and that franchise and that roster was good to the last drop last night. And the Las Vegas Aces, give them credit. They are a fabulous team with incredible players, and they were healthier than Indiana, and they were able to distance them in the end. But I'm telling you, it's just like I've talked about with other teams and other leagues that we have watched in this town. The Indiana Fever last night looked like Rocky Balboa getting up off the canvas, and Apollo turns around and looks and is like, I can't believe they're still here. And they were still there. And yes, there's a lot of uncertainty with the WNBA in terms of what happens between now and next season. But what I know is this. What I know is I love Indianapolis. I love Indiana because I love the culture and the people in this town. And last night it was represented by the best of it in the Indiana Fever, showing the rest of the WNBA and the rest of the sports world we just are a little bit different here because we care about the collective versus the individual. And that's exactly what you saw last night. I thought it was awesome. I know they didn't win. I know that I wanted to see them win. But with their best player down once again, it was perfectly symbolic and fitting that their season would end where yet another player would go down and everybody wrote them off. And Stephanie White says in that group, you've got to look around and do what's best for this team. You've been here before, and nobody's better equipped than you. And yes, they might have lost, but they represented us in the very best way. And so I say congratulations to the Fever and thank you on what was a great season that not just as we talked about when the WNBA first came about, hey, this is great because it's a league that little girls can look towards and see role models. No. Yesterday, what you saw was young people in general, boy, girl, whatever background, whatever ethnicity, whatever level of skill, can look at what the Fever did last night and say, that's something that I aspire to be, whether I want to be the best baseball player, basketball player, doctor, architect, lawyer, whatever it might be. That was the example, and I thought it was awesome. James Boyd talked about it this morning along with Kevin Bowen and Jeff Rickard. He joins us now on the program. You hear him on the Fan Morning Show, but we want to get, as we talked about, his boots on the ground out at West 56th. Shane Steichen talking to the media today, and then everything gets back underway to now shift and kind of turn the page towards the Las Vegas Raiders. James, I'll begin with this. We just talked about it. Kenny Moore, Alec Pierce. Looks like both of those not going to be. Alec Pierce can kind of go through some things. Will we see Alec Pierce on the field against the Raiders?
Yeah, it does sound like that is trending in the right direction. Shane told us today that Alec Pierce will practice. He's still in the protocol, but that's usually normal just because they usually don't clear the guy until the following week. And so if things go as planned, I would expect Alec Pierce to be cleared sometime, whether it's Friday or Saturday. And then when it comes to Kenny Moore, he said that he remains out. I did ask him, hey, is this like a week-to-week thing? And he was just saying, hey, he's progressing well. And that's about all the update we got on him. And so those are the two big, injury updates I have for you.
James, when you look at the defensive backfield for the Colts, which is clear, and look, I'm not even saying this is a knock on the Colts. I mean, it's their Achilles right now, but attrition is a huge part of that. And Xavier Howard, I mean, it does feel, I mentioned last night, the Fever were good to the last drop. I feel like they've gotten the last drop out of the career of Xavier Howard. And again, it's time, right? Do they continue to go that way, or does Lou Anarumo now say, you know what, we've got to experiment and go somewhere else?
That's an interesting question because we were able to follow up with Shane today. And again, they basically are saying, hey, those were two elite receivers last week in Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua. So it's going to be a tough matchup for any team. But I do feel like you look at the numbers, man, and you can look at any site, whether it's Pro Football Focus, Pro Football Reference, True Media, which we use, all these different, languages I'm speaking right now. Who cares? All of it says that he's been bad. And if you use your regular eyes, you can tell that he has been bad and he's been pretty, porous on defense. He's giving up yards, giving up catches. I think the thing that's probably most concerning when you look at this, Jake, is some of the effort at the end of these plays. You go back and watch some of that tape, man. I'm not like a body language expert, but, there was a couple of times where a pass gets caught in his vicinity, and he's the last guy rallying to the ball. He's the last guy trying to make a tackle. And so those things are concerning to me. So I do think that personally it's time to possibly try something else because it really cannot get any worse than what you're seeing right now. I mean, the passer rating when you're targeting Xavier Howard, I believe, through the first 4 weeks of the season is like above 120. And for those listening, a perfect passer rating is 158.3. And usually if you're above 100, that's really good. So for it to be 120 is absurd.
Yeah, it's just you keep going to that side, right? And then, the other thing that comes into play, and James, you tell me or kind of spell this out for people, I guess, if you will. We forget that Jalen Jones was out. Then you have Kenny Moore going out, which is your nickel primarily, but you have to start kind of reshifting guys around, okay? The Kenny Moore absence, obviously it's relevant, but does it change or move around the pecking order, if you will, of the corners in terms of having to put people then out of normal position to be able to fill in where Kenny Moore was?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily that too much because they did bring in Mike Hilton to kind of fill that role. Thought he was fine in his Colts debut, and so the other cornerbacks were able to kind of stay where they normally line up. But, if Kenny Moore were healthy, I think that there would be some conversations being had like, hey, is this a guy we want to play outside a little bit and perhaps have Mike Hilton play in the slot, but not having Kenny as an option really just kind of, I think, puts a spotlight or a magnifying glass on just how depleted your cornerback room is. And look, I understand that Xavier Howard is struggling and he wasn't their first choice. I'll give them some grace there because they've dealt with a litany of injuries in that room. But now that you've seen this for a month, I think you do have to make an adjustment. And if you don't, what are you preaching to your guys? We heard when Lou Anarumo got hired, he doesn't care about resume. He's hard on all his guys. He's tough. He's hard-nosed. Now it's time to be tough. You believed in this guy. You brought him here. He isn't performing. And so now I'm looking at him saying, okay, you told us you didn't care about resumes when people got here. You shouldn't care about Xavier Howard's resume because, as you alluded to, Jake, he was a great player. I do not believe he is a great player anymore.
James Boyd is our guest, of course, with The Athletic, but also on the morning show, the Fan Morning Show, along with Kevin Bowen and Jeff Rickard. You hear him on this radio station talking about the Colts. James, A.D. Mitchell, when he came into the league, the question mark on A.D. Mitchell was about maturity. And as I mentioned yesterday, I don't mean maturity like he's making fart noises with his armpits, right? Just
right.
Focus in general, right? Like attention to detail type stuff. To me, and I want you to tell me if you disagree with this statement. I'm going to make a statement, and then I want you to tell me if you agree with the statement. The maturity of A.D. Mitchell is going to be more tested now than ever because the toughest thing for an athlete is to be able to carry on and move forward from a negative experience. And he'd not had one but two negative experiences, and this is going to be the ultimate test of his resolve, and we're going to find out a lot about him against the Raiders. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. And I think the hardest part, Jake, is that we might not find out what it looks like on the field for the Raiders, because I did follow up with Shane Steichen today, and I was able to ask him, will A.D. Mitchell play? It was this direct question, and he said, we'll see how the week goes. And so that, to me, says they're at least thinking about possibly, benching him.
And that's not an injury. There is no injury in play that we're aware of, correct?
No injury. He's fully healthy. It's just a matter of, do we trust you enough to be out there when we need you to perform? And so he kept saying today, Shane Steichen that is, that A.D. Mitchell has to earn it. And so what does that mean? We'll find out certainly throughout this week and what that means for Sunday's status. And so to your point, Jake, if he is not available, how do you handle that? How do you come back from that? How do you act like a professional? How do you coach up your teammates? How do you believe in your teammates? How do you, do all the things that you're supposed to do when you don't get what you want? Because right now he's been given what he wants, and he's been proven, at least through the first, stages of his career in the NFL, that he can't be trusted in the big moments. And so it's unfortunate for him, but also it's not like a career ender. I'm not saying bench him for the rest of the year. No one's saying that. But if they sit him down for, a week, considering that Alec Pierce is also back in the lineup, assuming that happens, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, I think, to get his attention and also to kind of let him know we have a higher standard here.
James, you grew up in Northern Illinois. Did you ever find yourself in a situation as a kid or whatever it might be when you were playing on a frozen pond and you were on ice? You ever, like, you know what I'm talking about? When you're out on the ice and then all of a sudden you hear that, like, and you realize the ice might
yeah.
be – you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I feel like every kid in America probably did that when their parents told not to.
Correct, right? So you hear that noise and you know, like, oh my gosh, the ice is not near as solid underneath me as I think, and you immediately retreat to get off of the ice. What player for the Colts right now is hearing that ice and is starting to wonder just how stable things are underneath them if they don't get things going?
That's a great question. I think one we already hit on was A.D. Mitchell. Another one is Xavier Howard. For sure, those two are the ones that really stick out to me, and for different reasons. I think for AD, it's all about focus and finishing and being a professional and all the things that go into, making plays on Sundays. And then for Xavier Howard, it's like the reaper coming from you. It's basically he's looking to see, like, can I be the player that I used to be? Can I still be an NFL starter at this point? Because right now, I do believe that is the case. And so those two players stand out for sure in my eyes. And then, not to say like this is some red flag or some alarm, but I do think you want to see Bernard Ryman, the left tackle, bounce back from a poor showing last week. Got beat multiple times on the edge, had a couple of penalties. Now, he's on the hot seat. I'm not saying he's going to be in the doghouse, but you do want to see him bounce back as well against a Raiders team that's struggling right now, but still has a great pass rusher and Max Crosby on the other side.
You know, it's interesting. Left tackle is the one position to me, James, that even the very best of the best, it feels like that's the one position. And I think so much of it is just like it's a timing feel position. The very best of the best at left tackle, it seems very few of them go 16 for, well, and now I guess it would be 17, go 17 for 17 in a season of a game where you go, yep, they were there. They always, it seems like it is a position very prone to an off day. The elite ones are simply the ones that make sure that that's the one-off. Make sense?
Oh yeah, 100%. But I think the reason why my eyebrows are raised, and again, not in a bad way, just in a, hey, they gave you $100 million, you have to perform. And I get that, you're going up against the best in the world, and you weren't an all-pro or a Pro Bowl caliber player, and you might not be, but I still consider Bernard Ramos to be one of the better left tackles in this league. And he even said it himself. He's got to play better. He's got to bounce back. And one thing I do love about Bernie is he never, minces words. He says it like it is. He takes ownership, and usually he responds pretty well. So I'm excited to see how he performs, perhaps in a better light come Sunday against the Raiders.
Okay, what else are we looking for today or that could be big topics for you tomorrow in the morning?
I think one of them is just looking at Matt Gonzalez. They were saying they were going to work him out today to see if he can practice later on. That is the starting right guard for the Colts. I thought they really missed him last week. He's played really well this season, especially in pass protection. So he's someone that you want to have out there against the Raiders, really want to have out there every week, obviously, as a starting offensive lineman. So that's the other injury update. And then from there, I think, looking at this offense as a whole, how do you kind of bounce back from your first sort of dud? You only scored 20 points, should have been 27, or perhaps more than that, given A.D. Mitchell's blunders. But Daniel Jones, how do you respond to your first game where you did not play lights out? You weren't at an MVP level. You had 2 turnovers. We've sort of bought into you here in Indianapolis, but how do you solidify it? You go out there and you bounce back and you play well against a bad Raiders team. So to me, the Colts are very fortunate to be 3-1. I know some people are saying, oh, they should be 4-0. Well, you could just easily be 2-2, given how the Denver game ended. So you take a 3-1. You come back home against a bad Raiders team. You got the Cardinals coming to town the week after that. They're not a great team either. So you're in a great position to still control your destiny when it comes to winning the division and getting to the playoffs.
All right, James, appreciate it. We'll be listening in the morning, all right?
Appreciate it, brother. Have a good one.
James Boyd joining us from the Athletic and the Fan Morning Show. All right, when we come back, you might hear it. Again, I mentioned earlier, there's no humidity in the air, so you can hear things in the air, right? Do you hear the wind of change? There's a wind of change, and I'm speaking almost aesthetically.
Usually when I hear a wind and feel a wind, Jake, that means it's something else.
Okay.
He hasn't made a stop in a while, so I don't know if it's him or not.
He's speaking by chance of our friend Robin.
I know.
Robin the Genie is not here, but there are winds of change taking place throughout Indianapolis, aesthetically speaking. And one of those who was behind the decision to mix things up with one of our teams joins us next. Summer indeed is past, and now we move on to, of course, October, because September is ending. That's not to say the boys of summer are not a topic of conversation. And I noticed it, I think it was 2 days ago, on social media, the new look, if you will, the new branding of the Indianapolis Indians. Joining me now to talk about it, he is the president and CEO of the Indianapolis Indians. He is also the 2024 Minor League Baseball Executive of the Year. Randy Lewandowski joins us on the program. And Randy, I am prepared to cash out the 401k and come to the gift shop because I love every aspect of it. But then I thought to myself, the new look of the Indians, what went on behind it? I thought we could talk about exactly that. How are you?
I'm great, Jake. Thanks for having me on. And it's normally a pretty quiet time of the year for our gift shop, but we're open, and swing on by and we'll help you out.
Okay, so there's a rich, and I talked about this yesterday, Randy. I think most people know this, but there is a really rich tradition of baseball in Indiana beyond just the years, the century of Indianapolis Indians baseball and some of the great players that have come through here, but also great players that are native to here. I mean, everything from Oscar Charleston, and the Negro League teams and the ABC teams and the Clowns. You guys have kind of paid homage to all of them in different periods. And this particular new look for the Indians, getting away from the red and black and kind of more into a navy color scheme, seems to kind of tie a lot of that in, but maybe I'm overthinking it. What was the motivating factor here of the rebrand?
No, I mean, you're exactly right. The black and the red, again, I just finished my 32nd season with the Indianapolis Indians, and it's been the same look and feel for all 32 because it started the year before me. So a good portion of your listeners and Indianapolis in general think, oh, Indianapolis Indians red and black. But if you go prior to that, we had some Expos colors for the 6 or 8 years we were at the Expos in the late 80s and very early 90s. But prior to that, most everything that we had was a red and or a navy look. And when you hearken back to, the 20s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, that was prominent. It's also the city's primary colors being navy and red. And really, that's what we were leaning into is the heritage, the nostalgia, the history, as you said, that we have in the city of Indianapolis. Again, we've been around since 1902. That's why we're Indy's original home team. You're going to see and hear that a lot because we've been around longer than anybody else, and that's really what we leaned into as we started to look into this 3 or 4 years ago.
In terms of, and for those that are unfamiliar, Randy, you have all baseball teams do this now, I realize, like kind of multiple logos, right? So there's one, I've already seen somebody wearing it today, of the interlocking INDY that goes, it's almost like a New York Yankees, New York Fire Department kind of look that spells out Indy on the hat. There's another that uses simply, and I'm going to speak generically here, like an old script letter I that's on the hat. Which one, first off, will be the primary look?
We're going to wear both. The Indy monogram will be primarily at home. We call it a black letter I, primarily on the road, though they are interchangeable. We felt like we wanted to do both to give us some flexibility to see how they all fit and come together. But that is the primary focus on those. And you talk about, and we'll still continue, we're focusing on what you just mentioned, Jake. We'll still continue with our Circle City brand. We're still going to continue to honor the Negro Leagues. We've got something exciting coming from a Native American perspective. Those are all things that we'll roll out in the spring. But right now we're focused on our primary, which is we did a roundel. That's the circle that you might see, on a piece of paper when you sponsor an event, kind of as your classic look. That's on the sleeve of all of our jerseys. So that's our primary logo. And then we have the monogram and then the black letter I that you'd mentioned. So we're excited about all of them and really looking forward to getting them out in the public. And we're being more visible than we ever have been in what we would call the fourth quarter of the year. We usually go pretty dark, but we're out there with an ad campaign. We ran a spot during the Indianapolis Colts game, believe it or not, on Sunday. And you're going to see us in some other non-traditional spots for us here this fall and winter.
Why the timing on it? I mean, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I
No.
mean, like you said, it'd been a long time, but was there a significance of the year? Or did somebody in marketing just get bored? Is it I mean, obviously it's going to sell a lot of merch as well. Any specific reasoning for that?
I think a couple things. The first one, as we entered in a partnership with the Miami Nation of Indians of Indiana in 2023, we certainly learned some things about their perspective. And the old logo had a Southwestern look and feel to it, and that's not really proper to where we are in the Eastern Woodlands and with the tribes represented here. So if you look at the roundel, it's got some ribbon work, and that's more native to this area. So that was important as well. And candidly, the other logo is 33 years old, and we felt it was outdated. And it was time to give it a fresh look, and we put all that stuff together, and we've worked on it for, like I said, it's always a long process. And for us, it's been 3 to 4 year of a journey with lots of input from Native American tribes, from our staff, our board of directors, season ticket holders. We've done gallery sessions, jam sessions, lots of different community audiences to give input. It wasn't just cooked up by our marketing and creative departments. They led the process, but it was inclusive. And we tried to be as thoughtful as we could as we made the adjustment for what we hope is the next 30 years.
You know, Randy, this will stun you, I know, but I was looking at the, I guess now the recently retired logo, if you will, of the Indianapolis Indians, and one of the things that was worn on the hat, I guess it's the facsimile of it. It resembles an arrowhead, right? That particular logo that I'm talking about. You'll be stunned to know that I was 53 years old and however many months now when I realized that actually is 2-letter I's that are up against each other for Indianapolis and Indians to form that. I never knew that. Is that stunning to you that I didn't figure that out?
No, it's not stunning. Most people did, and I would tell you then it was cleverly done, and probably too cleverly done back in the early 90s, because we referred to it as a double I, not an arrowhead. But I mean, I certainly see how everyone, how that has been portrayed and thought of over the years. But that was, it was 2 eyes that formed together, and then with a little some other marks in there as well, but it was a little too clever, I think. So, Jake, you're not alone in that regard.
Well, usually I'm the last to figure stuff out.
No,
right?
never. You're Mr. Indianapolis. You've been looking at that thing for a long time, and but it is funny when you start to look at things how you just look past some.
Well,
of the
then
details.
once you see it, you don't unsee it, right? Once you see it,
Right.
you're like, how in the world did I never know that? I wanted to, before we let you go, Randy, and I appreciate it. Randy Lewandowski's our guest from the Indianapolis Indians. You touched on something I wanted to touch on a little bit more, and that is, we live in an era and a time, and I know that the question had been brought up of would Indianapolis ever deviate from the name Indians? And obviously the Cleveland Indians come to mind, a little bit different in the caricature nature of Chief Wahoo versus, say, the way that it's been branded in Indianapolis. But obviously, I didn't realize this, so I appreciate you expanding on that. There obviously has been a very concerted partnership amongst a Native American tribe to make sure that all of this is done within the proper respect, if you will, of that group of people. And so therefore the name, I would assume, continues for another 100 years as well.
We certainly think so. And yes, again, as we forged that relationship with the Miami Nation of Indiana, that has been it's just like any other partnership and relationship. And this one is built on trust and respect. And Chief Buchanan and his tribal council, they're based up in Peru, Indiana. It's been a wonderful relationship. We've learned a lot. It's going to allow us to better educate and further educate and use our platform to do so. We will not be the spokespeople for the Miami Nation. We can't be, and we won't be. But we can provide a platform for them, and that's something that we have done with our Native American Heritage Nights, where we recognize Native American veterans. We've got a scholarship program, just other things that we can build in regards to that relationship and that partnership, and it's been fantastic. They were here Friday night when we did the unveiling. We're going to be super excited when we do. Again, I mentioned we've got something else coming that is even more native themed in the spring, and they're fully behind all of that, and they've been a great partner of ours, and we're excited to see where that goes in the future.
And lastly, the partnership with, obviously now being the parent club being the Pittsburgh Pirates, I'm always fascinated with how those dynamics, contractually speaking, work. That partnership extends for how long?
That is through 2030. So we've got another 4 or 5 seasons left in that. And really that becomes, it's changed a lot over the years. Those used to change every 2 and 4 years. Now they're 10-year situations via Major League Baseball. They're more involved than they ever have been. So yeah, we're going to be a proud partner and affiliate with the Pittsburgh Pirates through 2030.
Do they have say in the branding and the color scheme and that kind of thing?
They do not. We offered them an opportunity to take a look, and they're fully aware of what's happening, and they're fully supportive. It'll be a little different when we wear Navy helmets instead of black helmets and everything else, and as players coming up and down from different levels, but not all of their affiliates are the black and gold, and we didn't think that was going to be appropriate here. This is still Colts country, it's Pacers country, it's Indianapolis Indians country. We didn't think to introduce black and gold was going to make a lot of sense in Indianapolis, that's for sure.
Randy, we certainly appreciate it. I love the look. It is well done. I certainly also tip of the cap, pardon the pun, for tying in and letting our listeners know about the tie-in as well with the Miami Nation and the tribute to that in terms of the designs of the look. I'll be over at the gift shop Friday. My buddy Jeff Esther and I are coming to break the bank.
All right. Sounds great, Jake. Appreciate the opportunity, and be well.
I appreciate it. Randy Lewandowski, who is the president and CEO of the Indianapolis Indians. Eddie, you said you have or have not seen them?
Seen what?
The new look, the new hat.
I absolutely love the new look. The Indy hat is chef's kiss. Oh.
It's pretty. Somebody told me it's too confusing.
Not at all. That person just needs some help. Maybe they need some glasses, Jake. I'm just kidding.
Did you know about the double I on the old logo?
No, I didn't. Honestly, I saw the Indy hat and I fell too much in love with that one. I don't even care what the others look like.
It's pretty awesome. I'm a huge fan. Zach Osterman-Osterman's going to join us on the program. What time did you say, Eddie, for Zach?
15 minutes from now, Jake.
15 minutes from now. Sam King as well. We got a little college football to get into. We'll do it in 15 with Zach. So here's the good news, bad news yesterday in the world of sports, and I will get back into my thoughts on the Fever game last night. Somebody made the point to me, Jake, I love the passion, but what 9-year-old was watching that game when it was a 9:30 tip? I get it. I wasn't necessarily speaking about like that kids would have been up right then, but the example was still there in the way that that team played and everything that they did. Hoping to have Stephanie White on the program on Friday.
Jake, I just have to commend Stephanie White for the job she did, and I know she will never take credit for it just because that's not the type of person she is. It's not the type of coach she is. She'll deflect and say that all the credit should go to Amber Cox, Kelly Krauskopf, Mel Raines, all the people above her, and then the players below her. But the job that she did of rallying all those players together throughout the course of the season, delivering powerful message after powerful message to empower these women on the roster to come together, be able to figure it out on a game-to-game, night-to-night basis on what was working and what wasn't working, while trying to navigate all the constant questioning of when is Caitlin Clark coming back? Is she coming back? All of that stuff, the death in the family that she had earlier in the season, all of it. She had to overcome so much, and she will never take credit for it, but the job she did this year is one for the ages, in my opinion.
I totally agree. And look, do we have a bias because she comes on the show? I'd like to think not, but I guess human nature does come into play a little bit. But there was a lot of question about Stephanie White early in the year, right? When Caitlin Clark first went out and they were struggling, and the way that group, and it was literally like 5 different versions. The Indiana Fever this year looked like the San Diego Padres uniform department. Like every game, it's different, totally different look.
The Oregon Ducks is another one.
Yeah, Oregon. Just when you got used to one helmet, here comes another. And that's what they had to do this year in terms of the way that how they needed to look.
When I do the quack quack, does it make you think of Aflac or does it make you think of the Oregon Duck?
I think the Oregon Duck's just awesome.
Yeah, it is.
It's my homie.
Yeah, it is.
There's confliction over the name of the Oregon Duck. Now, when I was pseudo-stalking the Oregon Duck at Ross-Ade Stadium,
It's just name the Oregon Duck.
numerous people told me his name was Puddles. And I don't think that's right. I think it's just the Oregon Duck, right?
It is the Oregon Duck.
Yeah, he does need probably a better name than the Oregon Duck. But he is. When did the Oregon Duck become like the dude?
It's a great question.
You know what I mean? All of a sudden, one day, we all just collectively as a country woke up and said to ourselves, like, you know what? Like, the Oregon Duck is the dude. Right?
So they have a live white duck that attends games. That one is named Puddles.
They have a live duck.
Yes.
I assume in a cage?
I'm not sure.
He's not just waddling around, is he?
I have no idea.
He ain't just walking around. That seems like it'd be dangerous, right? Now, can you name all of the flightless birds on Earth?
No.
The ostrich would be one, right? The penguin would be one. Is the emu a bird? Is that a flightless bird? Look up flightless birds. Ostrich. Obviously, ducks aren't one of them. That's why, with Puddles on the sideline, you probably got to keep them relatively caged in. Penguin, ostrich, emu. What am I missing?
Ostrich, emu, kiwi.
Oh, the kiwi, yeah, of course. That's the flightless bird of New Zealand. Yep.
A rail.
Oh, excuse me?
Yeah, a rail.
Okay.
That's a rare island bird.
Interesting because...
A steamer duck.
Excuse me?
Steamer duck. Dodo.
Oh, the dodo's extinct, though, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
An elephant bird.
Elephant bird?
Yeah.
Nah, there's no elephant
Colossal Madagascar bird.
Well, that's got to be the same as the elephant, right?
A
Hence
quail?
The colossal part. Quail, okay, that makes sense, yep. And also vice president, yep. Any others?
Oh, yeah, there's plenty. I'm just trying to...
Actually, that quail bird as the vice president also kind of never took off, right? But the...
A ray? R-H-E-A?
So
Rhea? Ray?
Okay. And also, Puddles, the Oregon duck a flightless bird because they want to make sure that he ain't flying around, right? But he was cool when I met him. Didn't say a lot.
Well, he's a mascot, Jake. He's not supposed to say anything.
What
Other
a
than
gig.
quack, quack.
The Oregon duck twice this year so far twice in the last year has lost his noggin.
Poor guy.
I know.
I shouldn't say guy. We don't know.
They should have you be the duck because once they get that head thing over your head, there's no way that thing's just going to randomly pop off.
Thanks.
I don't care how many somersaults he's doing or backflips or fights he's getting in with the Stanford tree. None of it, right?
Yeah, I needed the belittlement. Thank you, Jake.
In the NFL, by the way, do we happen to have the breaking news sounder by chance?
I don't know. You going to be nice?
Yes. The Cleveland Browns are playing in London against the Minnesota Vikings this weekend. And people in London are going to say to themselves, yeah, I thought we were going to come out and see Joe Flacco. Where's Joe Flacco? I don't see him, but instead it's that guy. Actually, he used to be a duck, an Oregon duck. Dylan Gabriel is now the starter for the Cleveland Browns.
Former Boomer Sooner as well.
And
can you name the third college he played at?
Ooh, that's a good one. Dylan Gabriel.
I
should know this. He finished at at Oregon, right?
He did. He did indeed.
What conference for the school in between, right? Or did he start at Oklahoma and then went somewhere and then Oregon?
Oklahoma was school number 2.
Okay. Was it a big leap for him to go to Oklahoma or a lateral movement?
Big leap, yeah. I mean, this school's, one of those fun schools to go to for football that typically score a lot of points but give up a lot of points.
Boise State.
They have kind of sick uniforms. No, not Boise State.
They have kind of sick uniforms.
They do.
But they score a lot of points but give up a lot of points.
Mm-hmm.
Are they a bowl game, like a bowl team usually?
Yeah.
What conference?
Their color scheme is very similar to Purdue's. But they just have a lot of unique different uniforms.
Wyoming.
I believe they're in the Big 12.
Baylor.
No.
Okay, go ahead. Hit me.
UCF.
Okay. Yeah, they might be in the Big 12 now, right?
They are.
At any rate, Joe Flacco has been replaced by Dylan Gabriel as the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. The interesting point of that, Shedeur Sanders still listed as third on the depth chart, so Flacco drops one spot.
And then Arizona, this just announced Trey Benson, who was taking over as the RB1 duties for James Conner, who's going to be out the rest of the year, placed on injured reserve. He's expected to come back after 4 weeks with a knee injury. So if you play fantasy football, yikes.
Speaking of fantasy football, our league
3-1.
Chicago's Pizza is
don't
unbeaten.
even get me started on
They
the
are
BS
unbeaten.
that Chicago's Pizza got last week.
They're unbeaten, man.
I got freaking Malik Neighbors going down the first quarter, and Chicago's Pizza gets lucky.
Them's the breaks. Them's the breaks. Turkeys, by the way, don't fly, right? Just WKRP knew that. You would think WFNI does as well. Did you say Zach next?
I didn't have them last week. Yes, Zach Osterman next.
Zach Osterman joins us. Talks a little Hoosiers next. Yesterday, driving along, I get the following text message. This is the joy. I say that joy is the wrong word because it sounds facetious. I enjoy this. Don't get me wrong. But I take it with a little bit, not just a grain of salt, but like the entire Morton's factory. My buddy Jason Zweig, who I went to IU with, and he is like one of these, the biggest Indiana fan on the planet, right? So Indiana could sneak their way into the NCAA tournament as an 11 seed, and in the opening round could be faced up against a team with Steph Curry, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Tyrese Halliburton. And Zweig's like, dude, I'm telling you, I think they got him. He sends me the following. Says, I got to see an IU basketball practice and got to meet with Coach DeVries. Guy is awesome, and he runs a great practice. Team looks great. I think we're going to surprise some people. Which is all well and good, but at the same time, by like year 3 of Archie Miller, I heard the same thing from people like, no, you just got to see him in practice, man. Allen Iverson didn't like when he talked about practice. And I'm curious whether those that have been around Indiana think the same in terms of you can't buy into that just yet because there is still a lot to be done. But joining us now on the program from the Indianapolis Star, he is the Indiana Athletic beat writer, Zach
Osterman.
Joins us. Zach, how are you? Do we have Zach?
I'm good.
There we go.
I just can't get to the mute button fast enough. I apologize.
No worries.
I got the dog shuffling around in the office with me, and so I muted it. And
Really?
yeah, sorry about that.
Which dog is this?
So we have 2 again. Rebel is one of the originals that you're familiar with, and then we have a Pyrenees Border Collie mix named Mo.
Now,
So-
I'm thinking there was one. Was it Chewy? Was that his name?
Chewy passed away a couple years ago.
That's right. Okay. Chewy made a few radio appearances, if I'm not mistaken. He was not microphone shy.
No, he was robust.
All right.
He was very robust.
Football, basketball. I'll let you choose which one you want to lead with here.
Well, I'm writing about basketball today. Might as well start there.
Okay. So, how is it? It's fascinating. I was out today at Media Day for the Horizon League, for example, Zach, and IU Indy for that matter. New coach. He's brought in. It's very it's very Kurt Signetti feeling. Ben Hallett, the new coach at IU Indy, has brought in 4 players from West Liberty, where he came, and you got this whole new roster, so nobody knows, right? And to an extent, Indiana feels the same way in terms of we just kind of don't know the roster yet, but you've got an indication of it because they've obviously had an offseason of some games together. What have you noticed that is going to be different than a year ago aside from personnel?
Well, I think personnel informs the answer to that question insofar as, it's a very different philosophy of roster construction. By choice, Indiana's going to be a fair bit smaller. And I know Indiana fans will say, oh, thank God we're not going to, be playing big ball, 2 big lineups and all that. And it's like, okay, I get that, but, just remember that had its advantages, right? Like it was hard to bully Indiana inside. And it's not like, I think Indiana the last couple of years has been proof that there is plenty of quality in the portal if you go looking for a big man. They chose to really emphasize guards, wings, shooting, positional interchangeability. You look at the number of guys on this roster that are somewhere between 6'4" and 6'8" and can probably guard, at least 3, if not 4 positions. Maybe even a couple can guard all 5 positions. The reality is their starting 4-man is probably going to be 6'7". But they're also probably going to shoot the ball an awful lot better than what Indiana fans have seen the last few years. They're obviously going to be a very experienced team, which I think is going to make a difference. I think you could see that in those games that they had to come back from in Puerto Rico. I just wanted to say the Bahamas because they went there twice with Woodson. But, it is a roster that is going to look for its shots in different ways, play defense in different ways, move the ball, share the ball, score the ball in different ways. I suspect stylistically, in ways that are both welcome and in ways that might take some adjustment for some people, the first few games of the season are probably going to be, I would say, something of a mild system shock.
And with that, the question I would have is, are they stylistically playing something that cater to what he was able to put together via the portal, or did he go out to the portal to get people that stylistically play what he wants to play?
I think it's probably more of the latter. Like a lot of what he talked about, when he talked about kind of his principles and his approach when he was hired, and certainly if you talk to people who know him from his time at Drake and his 1 year at West Virginia, which admittedly that one's a little bit of a weirder sort of sample size because he lost his son early in that season and just kind of, I think, had to change the way that team tried to win games. But I think that a lot of what Indiana did in the portal was informed by what DeVries wants his teams to be and not the other way around. Now, you are always, especially in a low-volume player sport, and what I mean by that is there are just a limited number of, compared to football, compared to baseball, compared to soccer, there are just fewer players on the floor at any given time in basketball. You're always going to be a little bit beholden to your talent, right? You're always going to have to adjust based on what you're able to acquire. And, this year, obviously, Indiana's needs were fairly extreme because they had to renovate their entire roster, at least in terms of scholarship spots, scholarship players. But I do think that a lot of these sort of floor spacing, high tempo, motion offense principles, sort of vision that DeVries laid out, I think a lot of these players fit that at least at a basic level. I think what he does this year is going to reflect in some pretty fundamental ways what he wants his teams to be, philosophically and structurally. And again, that will always vary somewhat because you will always be beholden to your talent to a certain degree in basketball. But I don't think he necessarily just went out and got the 13 best players he could find and said, I'll
right.
once I've got my roster, I'll draw up my plan for next year.
It's interesting, Zach, because we didn't know a lot about him coming in, right? Talking about Coach DeVries. West Virginia, I talked to some people from West Virginia. I don't remember where I was recently. I saw a guy wearing a West Virginia hat, talked to him. Oh, yeah, we're from Morgantown. And the guy said, he said, look, we thought he was going to be here a long time. I mean, like he had that kind of a feel of really good coach and whatever else. And he said, I understand why you would leave to go to Indiana. But so with that said, when you watch or you're around it, does he seem to be the lead by example, like kind of quiet leader, just confident type, like what we see in a Curt Cignetti? Or is he more of the, high energy, run around, frantic Tom Crean level coach, or is he a Bob Knight coach?
So I would say I've gotten to sit in on, I guess, 3 practices now, if that's right, because I got to see him once out in Puerto Rico, and that one was, I would describe maybe as more of a workout than a practice. But also, obviously, been able to see him coach 3 games. I think what I have observed of him in practice is distinct to what I have observed of him in games, and that is kind of what I was told to expect with him. He is very competitive in games, although someone told me, and I have not had the bandwidth or the desire to look this up, but someone told me he's never been whistled for a technical foul. I find that kind of hard to believe for somebody who's been a head coach as long as he has. But he is a very competitive guy within games. Like, he's a very, even those games in the Bahamas, even those games in Puerto Rico, which anybody who was on that trip could tell were probably the lowest priority of the entire preseason tour sort of apparatus for Indiana. Once he got into those games, he was fiery, he was competitive, he wanted to win them. But in practices, he's when I say he's high energy, I just mean he's kind of all over the place and involved, but he's not barking in people's faces. There's not a lot of, sort of screaming, yelling. He's not overly demonstrative. Honestly, his practices remind me of Signetti's in how efficient they are. They just move very quickly. He's not afraid to cut a drill short if he feels like everything that needs to get accomplished has gotten accomplished. There's not a lot of wasted effort. There's not a lot of wasted movement. It is much more sort of professional and business-like when you are in kind of that teaching, learning, practice setting.
By the way, I just pulled this up, an article from this time a year ago. As a matter of fact, October 4th of 2024. This from West Virginia. I'm mostly calm, mostly. And by the way, are we going with DeVries or DeVries? I hear both.
It's DeVries.
Okay. I'm mostly calm, mostly, DeVries said when asked about his in-game demeanor. I haven't had a technical foul yet, so that gives you a little bit of an idea. His son's eyes light up. That is correct. Through 205 career games as a head coach at Drake, he had never been given a technical foul. So assuming he did not get one last year with the Mountaineers, then that factoid is...
He was close a couple times in Puerto Rico. And those
the
games,
Vern Fleming. Well, listen, there's a long history of Indiana coaches losing their temper in Puerto Rico, so why stop now, right?
I hope someday the film of these games surfaces, because the officiating, and I know it was being played on international rules, and that was part of it. The officiating was remarkable. Some of the screens that were getting set would be better described as pass blocking. It was. I mean, but then some of the stuff that wasn't getting let go, and then there was a play, and I'm taking in the weeds now, but there was a play where a Serbian, one of the players from the Serbian team hooked Trent Sisley and then fell down to make it look like Sisley pulled him down, and the referee didn't buy it and blew an offensive foul, and Sisley just bent over like 6 inches from his face and started barking at him. And it's just all this stuff that would never happen in a Big Ten game that was just absolute sort of summer basketball.
I want the total mayhem. I want the mayhem of international play. It looks like these guys are all playing at the Tabernacle, like with a Voight basketball, and people are throwing stuff. It's like being at an Oasis show. Let's go, right? I mean, let's go. Go big or go home. Hey, Zach, you mentioned Curt Cignetti. What is Indiana's, I guess, schedule, or do they deviate from it in terms of a bye week and the way that he handles a bye week versus a regular week?
So he'll pull some of the load off of his players, practices, and I don't think this is anything terribly unconventional. Practices might be a little bit shorter, or a lot of what you'll see a lot of coaches do in bye weeks is that the guys who get more reps will be the guys who aren't getting a lot of reps during game prep. So younger players, backups, red shirts, guys like that. So you're simultaneously kind of creating some opportunities for young guys to maybe, grow a little bit and develop a little bit in ways that they wouldn't get in a game week where you've obviously got to commit most of your time and effort to preparing your starters. And then at the same time, you're also taking some of the physical load off of your ones and twos. And the other thing that every staff does during the bye week is, and this will also affect how you structure your practices. Coaches are in and out of town because they're out recruiting. I've seen a host of, in particular, I think, defensive line offers that have been tweeted out in the last 24 hours. If that gives you a sense for where Buda Williams and Pat Kuntz probably are right now. They are probably not on the practice field, or at least they haven't been in recent days, because they have been out recruiting. Every staff uses the bye week to go check in on the guys who are committed, make sure they're still solid, make sure they're still feeling, I guess, for lack of a better term, feeling the love. And especially because basically all the offers I've seen today and yesterday have been class of 2027 players. You didn't used to offer juniors this early in the cycle as often, but now so many of those guys are committing in March, April, May, June, as opposed to August, October, November, December, or even into obviously the sort of pre-December signing window era where we went all the way to February. You got to start recruiting those kids earlier because they're committing earlier, and you need to be involved with them earlier. And the bye week, I think, is important for that, because if we're going to shift the whole calendar back a few months, then that means when you prioritize where you're going and who you're seeing in your bye week recruiting visits, you're going to need to start really digging into what is the sort of current junior class as well.
I want to feel the love. You know what I mean? We all want to feel the love. Eddie, when's the last time you felt the love?
I have no idea.
Zach, from the general public, tell me the last time you felt the love. If you're a recruit, like you're a recruit, Zach, and people are like writing you letters and they're telling you how great you are, and they're blowing you up on social media. I mean, I got one guy that blows me up on social media, and it's only because he constantly sends a picture of me that says queer. That's all I get. That's all the love I get.
See, I mean, I will say the one time in my life that I understood a little bit of the rush that athletes get from the attention is when I rode Little Five, and like the whole fraternity has to be out there to see you off, and everybody's cheering you and everybody's chanting your name. And I get it. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. It was
for
nowhere
what
near
team
the
were
same
you
level,
when you rode Little Five?
I rode for a fraternity called Sigma Alpha Mu.
Okay, Sammy's as we know it, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so you were a Sammy, and you were you the anchor guy? Were you like in breaking away? Which one were you?
Well, so the thing is, like in breaking away, none of them do anything except Dave Stoller. I was a lap eater. I wasn't very fast, but I had an engine. And
in college, I was a lap eater too. Funny.
Well,
you should mention.
I'm
Okay.
going to leave that one alone. But
Thank you.
I was always like on the heavy side for a cyclist, but the advantage in Little Five is there's no hills to climb. So if anything, kind of guys with a little bit more power had a little bit of advantage just to be able to sit in and just turn over and just hoover up long stretches of the race. Because the men's race in particular is just like a total war of attrition. There are long stretches of that race where it's just about surviving, not crashing, preserving as much energy as possible. And that was always my strength. Like
you guys
I was
finished
riding
what
more
place?
laps than the average.
What place were you?
Oh, geez.
Mid-pack?
No, we finished in the trophy spots twice.
Okay.
11th and 14th.
I'm going to guess.
I want to say 25th and 20th.
I'm going to guess who won it your last year. You ready? What year did you run the Little Five?
2009.
Your last year.
2006 to 2009.
Okay.
All 4 of those years.
Okay, I'm going to guess who won it. You ready?
Go.
Fiji.
Nope.
Cutters.
The Cutters won it my last 3 years running. That was part of their stretch of 5 in a row. That was the first. I'm going to get people totally in the weeds now. You done it. This is going to be the rest of the show. That was the first of the 3 years of Eric Young, who later won two USA Criterium championships and turned pro in cycling. Won the field sprint for Cutters.
EY, as he's known with his friends. Okay, so then there's one other one. I'm going to go with Pike.
No, Pike was never really good when I was there. It was a fraternity though.
Okay, so who was the other one that won it?
ATO, Alpha Tau and Mega. They had a rider named Hans Arneson who actually lapped the field, which is exceptionally difficult to do.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, they got booted off campus when I was there, so that's cool. Glad to see they rounded things out.
I think they've since gone through that cycle a few times. So I try to stay out of the Greek politics of it all.
Hey, can Indiana beat Oregon?
Yes. I think. I mean, we
let's rephrase that. Can Indiana still make the college football playoff if they lose to Oregon, and also and I think they'll beat Penn State, especially if they're ranked in the top 10. But if Indiana goes in and and narrowly is defeated by both Oregon and Penn State, but wins out otherwise, do they still get in the college football playoff?
I think they got a good chance. Obviously, that will depend on what happens elsewhere. Like there's the Big 12 have 2 teams. Certainly doesn't seem like the ACC has 2 teams. I actually think there might be a more compelling argument by the end of the year for 2 group of 5 teams in the playoff as opposed to 2 ACC teams. I don't think that will happen, but I think that is potentially there's a potentially more compelling argument forming there. It will depend, like it did last year, on how much the SEC cannibalizes itself. And just how many SEC teams genuinely sort of hold themselves above the rest of the field in that conference. But I think 10-2 with the wins the wins Indiana already has and the losses you're talking about this year probably actually hands Indiana a more compelling resume than 11-1 last year, because the schedule was just so bad. And it wasn't, by and large, that wasn't Indiana's fault. They did everything they could with it. Of their 11 wins, they only won 1 by, fewer than 2 touchdowns. The reason they got in the playoff was because of how dominant they were against even a terrible schedule. but it was a terrible schedule. This schedule is a lot tougher. The losses will improve. Let's live in this hypothetical you've laid out. The losses will improve the strength of schedule just as much as the wins will. As long as Illinois doesn't go in the tank, the wins are going to hold up because Indiana didn't just beat Illinois. Indiana put Illinois through the floor like Iron Man. And winning at Iowa, whatever Iowa does, that's always going to carry a certain amount of weight because that is one of the most sort of uniquely difficult places in the country to go relative to its conference and everything else. Like I said this to somebody on Sunday, Iowa at Kinnick on a Saturday in Big Ten play is the closest thing the conference has to the option anymore. That's how like distinct the challenge of Iowa football is, especially in that environment. I don't just mean schematically. I mean like structurally, philosophically, that win will hold up at least to the baseline. Indiana's big thing, I think, in terms of its own playoff candidacy is, as you said, don't go to Penn State or Oregon and just get completely run out.
Right.
Now, maybe you could afford to lose one of those games kind of heavy. Like if Indiana goes to Oregon and loses 35-17, we say, well, you know what? They had to fly across the country. It's Austin. Oregon might be the best team in college football. Maybe you can live with that. Just don't do it against Penn State too. And I think it's interesting because Indiana's not really like last weekend was the first time Indiana had won a meaningful road game under Kurt Cignetti in a difficult environment against a good team. Not this weekend, but next weekend, this next game is kind of the first time Indiana's played a game under Kurt Cignetti where there's relatively little pressure. Like that, Indiana doesn't have to win this game. Indiana doesn't even necessarily have to lose this game on a last-second field goal. Indiana went to Ohio State last year. That Indiana was the team in that game everybody had eyes on because everyone wanted Indiana to prove themselves or not. That doesn't exist in this game. There is a notable lack of sort of pressure or demand on Indiana going into the Oregon game. And I don't know if that makes Indiana better or worse, but I find it fascinating.
Zach Osterman is with the Indianapolis Star. He is the Indiana Athletics beat writer. He also was a lap eater in college. Zach, appreciate the time as always, and we'll talk to you certainly as we get closer to the time when the Hoosiers are going out to take on the Ducks.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me as always.
Appreciate it. Zach joining us on the program. We come back. Shane Steichen has spoken regarding A.D. Mitchell. Interesting comments. We'll let you hear next. You know, everybody has that T-shirt in your closet. You know the one I'm talking about. You haven't worn it in like 3 years. But when you're scanning through your clothes hangers, you see that one T-shirt and you're like, I can't throw it out because there may be occasion I've got to wear that again. Or that might come back in vogue. Or, boy, there's going to be like a Halloween costume where that's going to come in handy. Whatever it might be. But everybody has that one shirt also that you're like, you know what's funny? I've had this sweatshirt forever. And for a while there, it looked kind of old and tattered. And now it's like totally cachet and back in vogue because the, vintage is cool and hip. And
Isn't
so
that
therefore this is
J&B's
passable.
entire closet?
Yes. Well, then he lost all the weight thanks to Premier Weight Loss and J&B as well. And now he's got all the polo shirts from Goodwill's. But yes. So, whoops, I just knocked the camera. Sorry, Eddie. So, having said that, every once in a while, you hear something or you see something that you think to yourself, well, we could have just gone back a year ago and played that same thing and it would have worked. Without further ado, as an example of what I'm talking about, let's listen to Shane Steichen talk a year ago about what Anthony Richardson needs to do to be able to get on the field as the starting quarterback.
Yeah, he's got to go through practice and earn it each and every day. How, the meetings, the preparation, and how he prepares and how he practices throughout the week is what it means.
Will he play against the Ravens?
We'll see how the week goes.
Okay, now, Shane Steichen talking about accountability. And right then you just heard him talking about Anthony Richardson last year. Here's Shane Steichen today talking about accountability within just the locker room and with his team.
Accountability is a big part of this thing, and sometimes the outside world doesn't see the accountability that I talk to you guys about, but it takes place in this building a lot of times, and it's your actions too. After something like that happens, you got to flip a switch and go prove it, because words are words. Words can change your thoughts, but actions, can change, right in here. So, it's about action, going forward.
Okay. What's interesting is when he's talking right there about action and accountability, that first clip I played for you was not actually Shane Steichen talking about Anthony Richardson a year ago. That was Shane Steichen today talking about A.D. Mitchell. And yet, you can bridge and marry those two clips and say it's the same thing. When he talks about accountability, and he was talking about A.D. Mitchell there, both of those clips are from today. When he talks about accountability and he talks about the things that we don't see inside the building, the things we don't see inside the locker room. And then he goes and he talks about what A.D. Mitchell needs to do after a game when A.D. Mitchell not only dropped the ball early, but also got the penalty. Play this again, Eddie, now that you know that he's talking about A.D. Mitchell. This is Shane Steichen talking as the Colts are returning to the practice field about what A.D. Mitchell needs to do coming off a disastrous performance in Los Angeles.
Yeah, he's got to go through practice and earn it each and every day. How, the meetings, the preparation, and how he prepares and how he practices throughout the week is what it means.
Will he play against the Ravens?
We'll see how the week goes.
Okay. While I give Shane Steichen all the credit in the world for recognizing those things in Anthony Richardson and deciding that that's why he needed to go with Daniel Jones, one would assume that Shane Steichen had every reason to put Anthony Richardson back on the field as his starting quarterback this year. One would assume that everything was designed towards Anthony Richardson getting this year to again continue to grow. But Shane Steichen, because of accountability, and what does he keep talking about? He keeps talking about accountability within the locker room. He keeps talking about the things that you don't see that we don't see. The words you say. Walking into the meeting rooms, the time that you arrive. Being on time for treatment. Being on time for film sessions. Returning phone calls to people that are reaching out that want to help. All of those things that go beyond what you see on the football field. Shane Steichen's been telling us from day one that about Anthony Richardson. He all but stood up on top of the Salesforce Tower or bought the billboard on 465 saying, the guy isn't getting it. He stopped shy of that. It's not to say Richardson's a bad guy, not to say he's a bad player, but he kept telling us that over and over and over. And now, and this is where I feel bad for Shane Steichen, now he's got to do the same thing when it comes to the wide receiver. He's got to do the same thing. He's got to use his press conferences. He's got to use his moments to the media to shout it from the mountaintops that somebody's got to grow up. I don't think A.D. Mitchell's a bad guy. I don't know him. I've had him on this show. Seemed like a nice guy. I don't think A.D. Mitchell is running around putting whoopee cushions on people's seats and snickering when they sit down on them. But I think he lacks the maturity and understanding of knowing everything that goes into being a professional athlete and grasping, wait for it, accountability. And I feel bad for Shane Steichen because after he's gone through all of this, with Anthony Richardson, now he's got to turn around and go through all of it again with a wide receiver. The same lessons, the same narrative, the same answers, the same frustrations. And it's a 53-man roster versus a 12 to 15-person roster. I get it. So for the most part, apples and oranges. But what did we talk about earlier today that I was saying, and I will get back into it in a minute, that I was so impressed by and proud of to an extent, which sounds patronizing, but impressed by with the Indiana Fever. The ability by the Fever front office to, no matter how many players went down, continue to plug players in that did what it is that you need to do for a team to win as a team. And the Fever had to go 3, 4, 5 deep at some positions, and every single person that they plugged in, it was the same thing as the one before, selfless team play. And the Colts have to feel like they are at times running into a brick wall because once again, you move off of one player where you make the right decision to go with Daniel Jones, and that has been a stroke of genius by Shane Steichen and a credit to his convictions that he was like, I can't do this anymore, in trying to get this young player to understand accountability and responsibility and everything that goes into playing the position. So he goes with Daniel Jones, and then what happens? But Daniel Jones has to then make up for on the field at times or deal with at times the adversity of a player that is putting Shane Steichen in the position that he's already been through once before with the quarterback and Anthony Richardson. And where I feel bad for Shane Steichen, in addition to that, is he's being forced to deal with this young receiver of a guy that everyone knew that coming in. He was the 11th receiver selected in his draft, and it was in round number 2. And why was that? Because anybody that you listened to that followed him or was around him or coached him early on all said the same thing. Not a bad guy. Not a guy that you would like roll your eyes if he moved in next door to you, but not a guy that you can rely on and count on to consistently play the position because he hasn't learned yet, wait for it, accountability. And maybe now they are trying to finally teach it to him, but old dog, new tricks. And so I feel bad to an extent for Shane Steichen, but at the same time, there is an element of what the hell did they expect? Because it's everything that we heard about him, and once he finally got his number called and he finally seemed to break through that bubble of whatever was holding him back as a player, then every label on him came true in the span of like 30 yards. Not once, but twice. But I mentioned what took place last night that is something that I think we can all champion. And I will re-explain that next. My buddy Alex Wolf, who I do IndyCar radio with and is a diehard Cleveland Browns fan, I simply mentioned to him that the Browns are now going to go with Dylan Gabriel, and that is, since 1999, their 41st starting quarterback. Wow. To which he responds, imagine this if you're a Browns fan. He says, and remember that in the time they could have drafted Tom Brady, but instead drafted Spurgeon Wynn, and they also could have drafted Russell Wilson, but instead opted for 29-year-old Brandon Weeden, who got stuck under the American flag before his first game. Just brutal. I'd forgotten about that with Brandon Weeden. It would be tough to be a Browns fan for certain. And you know what? I mentioned this earlier. It's a Wednesday. The Colts are getting set to play the Raiders coming up this weekend. You've got the story of A.D. Mitchell perhaps being kept out of the starting lineup.
Is that being overblown? Are we overblowing this A.D. Mitchell situation, Jake?
No. I don't think so, because you can't preach the importance of accountability and maturity for one position but let it slide at another.
Well, I just think you're comparing two different levels of importance of position.
Understood, but let me expand by talking about this because it's the same thing. It parlays perfectly into what I'm getting to. Last night, so you're looking at the Colts and you're saying to yourself, A.D. Mitchell, I mean, he's a young player and he made some mistakes, but are we overstating the importance of it? Well, Shane Steichen very clearly wants to make it very clear, redundant I realize, that there needs to be accountability across the board within his franchise. And when that happens, and a little bit of apples and oranges here because different game, different roster size, etc. But last night, and I know it was late, and I know a lot of kids were not able to see it because it was late. I get that. But I am somebody that has the utmost pride in being from Indianapolis, and I love, obviously, being from Indiana. And I love there are things about Indianapolis and Indiana. Sure, as a city, we have our problems. As a state, we have our problems. I get it. But the thing about Indiana to me, and it took me a long time to realize this, when I was a kid growing up, I wanted the glitz and glamour of, I loved, seeing things in L.A. and the Hollywood Nights and the Hollywood Hills. And I loved the fast pace and the money aspect and the grit of the New Yorks of the world. And I liked the beauty of the sunset in Miami and, Miami Vice and the boats and those sorts of things. And then, the oil money and the opening montage of Dallas in Texas. I liked all those things. And I'm like, and I got to live here in little old boring Indiana. But as I've gotten older, what I've realized is this. In this country, the entertainment aspect comes from one coast. The money aspect comes from another coast. The things that fuel things may come from the Deep South. But the things that truly we as people need to survive, the heartbeat of this country is Indiana. Our crops, our animals, like that comes from Indiana. All the other stuff is all luxury. But the necessity is Indiana. And it made me realize that being from Indiana meant something, because being from the Midwest meant something, because it's the fiber and the foundation of who we as a country are is right here in Indiana. We go in, we have principles about ourselves, and that comes from the fact that we are kind of the heartbeat of what the rest of the country gets credit for being. And it's for that reason that I think that we subliminally want and appreciate out of our sports teams or those things that represent us. We want them to have those same morals and same principles and same values. And it's just different. In Los Angeles, sure, you're perfectly fine with going out and buying championships by just using your huge capital to go out and get the best payroll and get the best players and whatever else because you got all the glitz and glamour money there, and everything's superficial anyway. But in Indiana, we're just different, and we want accountability because we, for the most part in the Midwest, are people that go in every day, and what we hang our hat on is the fact that we go to work, we do our job, we come home, and we try to raise a family and kids to do the same thing. And we just take pride in the fact that we are a little bit different. And when you look at this Indiana Fever season, and yes, I get it. The WNBA is a niche sport. I get it, right? I get it. It's not as big as the Pacers. It's not as big as the Colts. I totally understand it. IU is ranked in the top 10. They're getting ready to go take on Oregon off their bye. I get it. Purdue is getting ready to take on Illinois for a trophy. I get it. Notre Dame is trying to fight their way back into the college football playoff. I get it. There's a ton that we can talk about. But what I want to talk about right now is simply this, and that is that last night I watched a team that found themselves on numerous occasions trailing in a game where they were trying to, for the fourth time, win an elimination game. They've already done so 3 times, the most in the WNBA since 2022, and they're on the road taking on a 2 seed and a team that has championship pedigree and numerous fabulous players, including one of them that's the all-time leading scorer in Indiana high school basketball history on its roster, and an MVP-level player and a defensive player of the year and all of that, all on one roster. And yet the Fever are going in there and they're doing it. 1 win away from going to the WNBA Finals. 1 win away from reaching the same round that their men within the same umbrella of company, the Pacers, did 3 months ago, whatever it was. Caitlin Clark, who is the most famous women's basketball player on earth right now, been out for the majority of the year. You know that, right? Sophie Cunningham, out. You knew that. Ari McDonald, the point guard, out. You knew that. Chloe Bibby, out. Sydney Colson, out. The number of players that the Indiana Fever have lost due to injury at no fault of their own. Not holdouts, not had to cut some. I mean, DeWanna Bonner is one that they brought in, big-time free agent, immediately realized it wasn't a fit. They decided to mutually part ways. But these other players, it wasn't because they were head cases. It wasn't because they weren't accountable. It wasn't because they were late to meetings. They were hurt. They were injured. And the Fever just had to keep on going. And last night, they find themselves in a situation where all of a sudden you're looking at it and you're going, holy cow, they're down 7 and they just came roaring back, and now all of a sudden they're within 3. They were down 8 and they come roaring back, and now the game's tied. At one point late in the game, John Nolan's doing the radio, and he actually says, why not Indiana? He's right. Twice. Right? Trademark. And so people all of a sudden are looking at it, and around the country, I would hope, people are watching it and they're like, wow, look at this group. And the person who has led them in scoring this year, Kelsey Mitchell, who has the highest single season scoring average in Fever history. She goes down with what now we know was extreme cramping. She was seen at a Las Vegas hospital afterwards and has been released. But she goes down, and at the time, you don't know what the extent of the injury is, but the players are rallied around her, and now they come to the sidelines, and they're without Caitlin Clark, and they're without Sophie Cunningham, and they're without Sydney Colson, and they're without Ari McDonald, and they're without Chloe Bibby, and now they're without Kelsey Mitchell. And Aaliyah Boston's got 5 fouls, and they come to the sidelines, and Stephanie White says, no one is better equipped for this moment than we are. Because every one of you has had to dig down deep over the course of this year. And what does sports represent? What is the value of sport? And I'm not talking about youth travel sports and 5-star recruits and NIL deals. I'm talking about when you first get signed up for sport when you're 6 years old, what is it your parents want you to learn? They want you to learn discipline. They want you to learn practice, and they want you to learn the value of finding the importance in teamwork, of putting your own skill to the test, but at the same time, meshing it with that of somebody else because you have a common goal with that person of being the best as a group. And whether you are today an architect, or you are today working at Home Depot, or you are today working at a medical facility, whatever it might be, at some point over the course of today, you are going to have to accomplish a goal at your place of employment or within your family or within your neighborhood where you've got to come together with other people. And last night, what the Indiana Fever did, they lost that game. They lost it. But you know what they did? They won the admiration of a lot of people, and they should have, if they hadn't already, won your respect as a representative, as the Indiana Fever, of representing what we in Indianapolis, what we in Indiana have always taken pride in, that makes us different than the glitz and glamour and the fake lifestyles of other parts of this country. Because they said to themselves, we're not going to sit here and dwell on what we aren't. We're going to, in fact, push in on the strength of what we are. And Stephanie White, I thought, did a fabulous job over the course of the year of staying true to that mission. I think the Fever front office and Kelly Crosspop and everybody that is involved in it did a fabulous job of putting people in the right position that they knew had the moral compass to get accomplished what it is they needed to get accomplished. And they did not advance to the WNBA Finals, but you know what? Who cares? They absolutely got, as I said earlier, they should have Maxwell House Coffee as their sponsor because they were good to the last drop. They got every single drop out of themselves and out of the team that you could possibly ask for, with every single curveball thrown their way, and they hit every one of them like Shohei Ohtani did last night against the Reds in the first inning.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
Yeah, it was brutal, wasn't it? Not once, but twice, mind you.
Teoscar Hernandez twice as well.
I thought it was fabulous. I thought the Fever last night, hats off to them. Thank you for showing and embodying what not just, and I know the WNBA, we've talked about, this is finally a league that young girls can look at and see their role models and their heroes and an example. Not young girls. Now, yesterday, any young athlete, any young person can look at that team and say, that's something that I'm proud they're from Indiana. And any parent can look at it and say, that's how you should go out and do things. I thought it was great. Speaking of Purdue, we're going to talk about that next. Hell yeah, a little Eddie Grant. Let's go. There's an Electric Avenue in Indy, isn't there?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure there is. When I was in high school, back when I was a less mature individual, I always thought it'd be neat to borrow the street sign from Electric Avenue.
Wouldn't it be a lesser when you were a lesser mature or less mature?
That's what I said, right? I was a less mature.
Well, you're still less mature, but you're not. That's why I said lesser.
It's mature, right? Did you ever, Eddie, when you were a kid, the answer here I know is not, but did you ever have a camera?
Yeah, like a disposable camera?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Like clicking.
The big still photos today, and I realize that they don't use film anymore, they're mostly digital, but one of the big brands is Canon, right?
Yeah.
It's not a camera, but rather a legitimate Canon, I think, that Purdue and Illinois are playing for this weekend. Did you know that?
Yeah, and there was a Catchings involved as well.
That's right. It's a little tiny, by the way. A little tiny Canon that they're playing for, right?
Widow Cannon.
It would be perfect for the hands of Kenny Pickett, right?
Widow hands.
Joining us now on the program, and I'm sure probably completely confused as to where we're going with all of that. He is the beat writer for Purdue Athletics. He is with the Lafayette. Now, is it Journal Courier or Courier Journal?
The first one.
Journal Courier, right?
Yes. Journal and Courier, technically, but
Journal and Courier. And I apologize for that, Sam. It's a mental block of mine because Louisville is the opposite, right?
Yes, that's
and they
correct.
both start with an L.
Yes.
Okay. Well, it is. Am I correct in saying Illinois and Purdue this weekend play for a little cannon, right?
That is correct. I don't know if it functions. I've never seen it actually fired, but it's very small. It looks like something you would put on your bookshelf in your den at home.
Yeah, it's basically a paperweight is what it is, Eddie, right?
Can Jake just say the LJC?
We call it the JNC here, but
There we go.
I'll call it whatever they want as long as they keep paying me.
The LJ and C, right? Like with so much drama that is written about in the Lafayette. Anyway, okay, Sam, let's begin with this. I personally think, and this is an intriguing matchup because I think Illinois is very good. Indiana obviously, exposed them and ran all over them, but they are still a stout opponent. But I think Purdue is better than, I know it sounds ridiculous to say what their record says, but what I like about Barry Odom's team, and I want you to elaborate on this, they look like one that maybe isn't as talented but plays within themselves and is disciplined. Now, am I going on too small a sample size to say that?
No, I think that's fair. I mean, you're a third of the way through the season now. I think that's a considerable sample size to go on. And you're right. When you look at the team that Purdue had last year and where some of those players transferred to and what they're doing at marquee programs around the country, Purdue was a talented team last year and went 1-11. And this year, maybe not as many high-end NFL prospect type players, but definitely a connected team and a team that, at least offensively has looked pretty good for the most part through 4 games. But it kind of was punching above its weight the last couple of games, and the score indicated as much. But not a lot of shame in in having a chance to knock off USC and then putting up 30 at Notre Dame. You would feel like that should have you in the game, and that was the case of where the defense kind of let Purdue down. But now you get Illinois that has been the last couple of weeks up and down, made some mistakes against USC, but wins it at the end. I do think Illinois is a better team than what it showed against Indiana. That was just a case where it was just a downhill snowball coming, and there was no stopping it. And I think that Indiana realized that was an opportunity to really show the playoff committee how good of a team it is. And a school that's not getting a lot of respect for what it's done the last couple of years took advantage of what was going on there. But yeah, I think this is going to be it always is a fight, whether Purdue's good, Illinois is good. There's been years where both of them have been bad, but it's always a game that seems to go down to the wire, and that was the case even a year ago where it was 50-49 in overtime.
I thought in particular in the USC game, we'll start with that, Sam, that Purdue was effective and at times almost impressive, but they had massive problems in the red zone. And then Notre Dame, they went trickery a couple of times to get creative, and I think in that one probably just overall strength and depth of roster does you in a little bit. But in terms of taking care of the football or trying to be more effective in the red zone, Purdue has tried to do what differently?
Well, I think Purdue did a better job I guess it's 2 weeks ago now. But you're right, that USC game, Purdue got in the red zone 3 times where it came away with 0 points. 3 interceptions after getting inside the 20. It's going to be tough to beat anybody, let alone an opponent that probably has more talent than you. And Purdue kind of took care of that, I think. The number one issue, I think, in those 2 weather-delayed games that they've played as of late has been the other team hasn't had to punt. And you're not going to beat anybody if you don't have a pitcher punt return team out on the field.
And that's the thing, right? It's hard to judge, though, for me, Sam. That's what I said when I said small sample size because, Southern Illinois and Ball State, no disrespect to those programs, but they're not SC and Notre Dame, right? And it's weird because with SC, you look at that game and it feels like they were in it. I mean, but were they? You know what I mean? Like, do you think SC ever really thought to themselves that they were in any sort of jeopardy against Purdue?
Yeah, it was kind of a weird game because the weather delay happened in the middle of that game that took forever, and I think that just threw off probably both teams, but especially the team that traveled across the country to get there and thought it was playing a day game turned a night game. But yeah, it never seemed like Purdue had opportunities where, okay, if Purdue scores here, it gets it to within 1 score, but it was never to the point where, okay, this is the game-changing drive where Purdue can take the lead or whatever. And unfortunately for Purdue, one of those momentum-changing possibilities turned into Ryan Brown getting hit as he threw the ball and a 400-pound house picking it off and running 70 yards for a touchdown, and that kind of just deflated everything. But yeah, you're right. When you look at that and you throw 3 interceptions down after getting in the red zone and you lose by 16, you walk away from a game like that feeling like, what if? But that said, there were also some plays that worked to Purdue's benefits, one of those being a double lateral that USC's defense didn't recognize was a lateral that the quarterback just picks up off the ground and waltzes into the end zone from 26 yards or whatever it was.
I like Devin Mockabee a lot, Sam, okay? And I think he can be even like a pound you between the tackles back. But they're utilizing him a lot for Ryan Brown out of the backfield. Do they need to find better balance in terms of maybe not getting Mockabee? In the passing game, he's been very good, but his yards per carry, I think, has dipped a little bit in terms of the running game itself. Do they continue with that versatility for him, or do they start using him more as strictly a running back versus receiving back?
What I think is the case right now is the line has not been very good at run blocking, and Purdue has masked it well with what it's been able to do in the passing game or getting creative at times. But you're right. Purdue has to be able to run the football to win in this league. And even though Purdue put up a lot of rushing yards against Southern Illinois, it was still a 3.9 yards per carry clip, which isn't great, especially considering you're playing an FCS team and should be able to kind of impose your will. Devin Mockabee is a proven talent as a running back. He's picked up a lot of yards, had a lot of yards per carry, even for some bad teams the last 2 years. But yeah, that's the one area that's most concerning so far, is that Purdue hasn't shown an ability to consistently run the football and move the chains and stay ahead of the chains using the ground game when you have running back the caliber of Devin Mockabee.
Is Purdue going to be the best team in the country in college basketball?
Man, I would say if there's a team better, that team's got to be mighty impressive, because just seeing a couple of practices so far, this is crazy. I think Purdue's second unit, or whoever they deem as the second 5 lineup, that team is probably an NCAA tournament caliber team alone. So when you have that kind of coming off your bench, that's deep, and that's probably even better for practice. You get kind of competitive Big Ten style games in preparation for a Big Ten game.
Who has most, as you have watched them, and I've watched some practices of Matt Painter, Sam. Sam King is our guest from Lafayette. We're talking about Purdue. I've watched Painter practices, especially at the beginning of the year, and it is impressive because it's not like, drill sergeant camp type stuff. It's just consistently going through and kind of setting tempo as to who and what they want to be. When you've watched it this year, who has jumped out at you, either that you were expecting at this point to see a little more, or because you thought to yourself, this guy's going to break in rotation earlier than we thought?
There's two guys I'm going to give you, and I'm not sure how much either of them are going to play, which is just maybe a testament to how deep this team is. But one is Jack Benter. He was a state champion at Brownstown. That was the coach there, and he redshirted last year. But even last year, just as a member of the practice team, was having some practices where he was lighting up guys that were getting major minutes for one of the top teams in the country. So he's definitely a talented player and somebody who probably alleviates some of the loss of Cam Heide going to Texas, because he's versatile enough to, he's a really good shooter. He can play the 3, he can play the 4, and do a lot of different things. The other one is Antoine West, who's a true freshman, and he's looked really, really good in the times that we've got to see him. And the problem is he's a guard on a team that has a ton of guards. So, there's going to be really good players that maybe play 5 minutes, maybe, come in and spell a guy for a couple minutes, and you have to make the most of those opportunities, but it's probably not going to be great for your overall stat line at the end of the season. But still, if everybody can buy into maybe whatever role they have, even how small it might be, this team should be able to win the whole thing, I would think. But that's a long way to go. And as Trey Kaufman-Wren told me last week, we may be the number 1 team in the country, but we haven't played anybody yet. So he kind of likened it to participation trophies and told me how much his grandfather hates participation trophies and that they're getting all these awards and accolades for things that haven't even happened yet.
Where do things stand in terms of, because there was so much praise and expectation a year ago. It's interesting, Sam, whenever, Zach Edey was such a great player, right? And then when he leaves, automatically your people are saying, who's the next Zach Edey? Who is it? Jacobson has the injury and then has to sit out the year. Where do things stand in terms of the center position?
Well, there's Jacobson is back healthy, has put on some weight. It still looks like he's thin, but I think just being 7'4" and 19 years old or whatever, that's probably natural. And between he and Oscar Clough, you kind of get all of what Purdue needed last year out of that position without Zach Edey. Oscar Clough was one of the best rebounding big men in the country a year ago. Granted, it was at South Dakota State, so the caliber of competition will be much different, but it seems to be a skill that has translated. And Jacobson is the rim protection you didn't have last year, being 7'4", being a shot blocker. Both of those guys also can come away from the basket and shoot, which is something we saw in the NBA last year. Zach Edey is capable of, but it would have been coaching malpractice if Matt Painter did that with him at Purdue. So he just parked in the paint and had field days at the rim. But I believe between those two guys, you move Trey Kaufman-Wren to the 4, you open up a whole new world of possibilities with what Purdue is capable of, because Trey Kaufman-Wren was so effective at being the 5 last year offensively that he's got a lot of different skill sets there, and he kind of acquired this little mini hook that he took advantage of last year. And now Purdue's doing some things out of that where it looks like Trey Kaufman-Wren's going to take the shot, and he just kind of lobs it over the top of the defender. And it's not, you don't have to get it too high for a 7'4" guy to go up and dunk it. So there's some little wrinkles that Purdue's adding in there, and I think this is going to be a really tough team to defend. And when teams adjust, I think Purdue has kind of the counterpunch to it.
Lastly, Sam, I want to know what it is about. And I know they lost, Miles Colvin. I know they lost Cam Heide. I get it. But take a Trey Kaufman-Wren. Here's a guy that comes in. He's in the same class as Caleb First. He red shirts. He sees First getting minutes right away. He waits his turn. He's got Edey there. He's kind of got to play like alongside but also behind him, etc. And it just seems like with Purdue, Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer would be prime examples of this as well. This is a program that has guys that could probably cash in literally and figuratively by going elsewhere. But they seem to kind of what I was just talking about with the Fever, buy into this team concept. What is it about that program that in fact makes it different?
Well, I think the number one thing is Matt Painter, and he is brutally honest sometimes, and some players don't want to hear that. They want to be told they're great and everything else, but other people respond well to that. And he never promised these guys anything. He never promised Fletcher Lawyer or Braden Smith they were going to come in and be starters right away. But he said, if you come in and outwork the guys who are possibly going to start, you will get the job over them. And that was the case. And then the thing that probably has helped is the success. And guys want to play for a team that has a chance to win a national championship. And for the last, 3 years anyway, Purdue's felt like it was a team that could possibly be in that mix, and certainly this season. So that helps. Trey Kaufman-Wren was one of those guys, like you said, he redshirted, but he bought in right away that if I wait my turn and keep getting better, by the end of my career, I'm going to be an All-American, All-Big Ten type player, and that's certainly been the case. So I think in a lot of ways, it was probably easy to buy into the program and the culture because there's kind of proof in the pudding that what Matt Painter and his staff is doing works.
jconline.com, where you can read all of the work regarding Purdue from Sam King from the Lafayette Journal and Courier. Sam, appreciate the time as always, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Sam King talking Purdue with us. It is fascinating. I mean, you just keep waiting for, and it's like any other team or teams where you go back and you look at a group of players and you say, man, in the moment I thought like there was no way it could get better than that. And then the next one comes along and then the next one, and you just keep getting a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And it is impressive. No question, it's impressive what they've been able to do. I was thinking about this last night also, speaking of teams where you look back and you think, I didn't think it could get any better. From a Red standpoint, I look at past playoff performances and I didn't think it could get any worse. I remember Eddie.
You've got the Johnny Cueto incident, Roy Halladay throwing a hitter. Come on.
The big one was getting no hit. I went.
You lose back-to-back games to the Braves without scoring a run.
Let me tell you what a dork I am. There's a guy named Jason Berkman that used to be the PR media relations director for the Indianapolis Ice, later the Indiana Ice.
Lance Berkman?
Good dude. Lance Berkman was a heck of a player for the Astros, right?
He was.
Different spelling, B-U-R-K. So Jason Berkman, Berkey as we called him, one day said, let's get a bunch of the media guys, and courtesy of the Indianapolis Ice, we'll take you all down to a Reds game. So I think Hagan went, Rakestraw went. I don't remember if John was there or not. This might have been before. This had to be 20 years ago. So we all head down to Cincinnati, and it was literally the hottest day of the year. It had to be 100 degrees. So we're out there in the outfield, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to walk around for a minute and, get souvenirs, whatever. I go in the gift shop, and maybe it was because it was the hottest day of the year, but they were selling, they had 50% off a leather jacket, kind of like the manager's coat, but like a leather jacket with the Reds logo on it, like the felt and the leather sleeves. A good-looking jacket. So I buy it, and I carry this thing around with me for like 6 innings while it's literally, I'm sweating gravy, and I'm carrying this coat with me. This coat's been in my closet. I don't wear it often. This time of year is perfect for it. But the Reds what year was that, Eddie, when the Reds made the postseason and took on the Phillies?
Oh, I can't remember the exact year.
14, 12, somewhere in there. I'm going to guess 12.
Yeah.
So I'm all pumped up. I've got my jacket. I say to Shane, I'm like, we're going out. We're watching. The Reds are in the postseason, baby. Let's go. I put my coat on. I put on my 75 authentic Reds hat. Not with the C that doesn't have the black bordering around it, but the legitimate mid-70s Big Red Machine era hat. And we went to Rusty Bucket up at 86th and Ditch. We sit down, and I'm dressed like I'm at a pep rally.
2010.
2010. It's been that long ago.
2012 was the year they win the first 2 games against the Giants.
Don't remind me.
3 straight. Yeah,
that was just brutal.
Yeah.
So 2010, I'm sitting there, and I've got on my hat, and I've got on my coat, and we're sitting in Rusty Bucket, And I'm like, no, they're going to get a hit. I mean, at the very least, they're going to get a hit. Nada. Blanked, right? No hit in the postseason.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Then I come back a couple years later, and we went out to haunted houses. I get in the car just in time to start listening to the game on the way home.
Gosh, Marty was the best.
And this one belongs to the Reds, up 1-0. 2-0. I'm talking in games. And then it happens.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Everything starts sliding out from underneath them against the Giants. And I'm doing the show with Derek in the middle of the afternoon, and I'm looking up, and you can just see it. You can see the onslaught coming of the comeback. And the Giants come back and beat them. And
I still have nightmares about Buster Posey.
yeah, totally. Right? I mean, and I go back, I remember, like I said, if you want to go way back, I remember the lack of grasp, because I was such a little kid, of when the 79 We Are Family Pirates knocked them out. And that was the beginning of the end of that era of Reds players in 79. And then thinking like, it's okay. Eventually Danny Dreesen and Eddie Milner and Gary Redus and Paul Householder and Ron Oster, those guys are going to be there's your future. But one of the things, Eddie, that I've always felt about baseball, I just had a conversation with Eric Ritchie about this when we were talking about the Reds. One of the things about baseball that I think gets, and you know more about baseball than I, you follow it much more closely than I, but I've always felt like the thing that separates sometimes a mid-pack team to a playoff team. Most teams in Major League Baseball can go out and put together an 85 win, an 80 to 85 win team.
Yep.
But the thing that separates, and yes, you have your teams that, are unbelievable, that can win 105, 110 games. You got 2 or 3 ace pitchers, etc. But to me, in order to go from, if you are the Cincinnati Reds, or you're the Kansas City Royals, or you're the Arizona Diamondbacks, just a middle-tier team, the thing that separates teams into special seasons, everybody wants to focus on the, De La Cruz or the Bryce Harpers. But what really separates teams is when you have guys, and you usually need 2 to 4 of them in the same year to have this happen. Guys that are career 265 hitters that all of a sudden have a season where they hit 290. And guys that are a career 11 home runs per year guy, and now they have a year where they're batting 290 with 20 home runs. And if you get 2 to 4 of those guys to have that happen concurrently, that's what lifts you. The 90 Reds, as great as Eric Davis was, and he was unbelievable, and as great as Paul O'Neill was, and he was a fabulous player, it was a career year of Chris Sabo, but more so like Mariano Duncan. Guys like that concurrently have career years, and that's what lifts a team from being 3rd or 4th in their division to all of a sudden, Craig Paquette and Carlos Hernandez are having miracle years together, and now all of a sudden the Cardinals are in the postseason. And I think that's the thing that you have to cash in on, if you will. But there is a feeling with this particular Reds group, even though it's awesome they're in the postseason, doesn't it feel like just making the postseason was kind of the ceiling?
Yes. Making the postseason was a bit shocking for me, Jake.
They backed into it, right?
Yeah, they backed into it, but they won enough games late to be in that conversation. And the Mets just ultimately collapsed, and yeah, now they're down 1-0 to the Dodgers. It's not even fair. Like, the Dodgers are rolling out 3 dudes that are aces for almost any other team. They got Tyler Glasnow, who's another ace. That's just chilling in the bullpen, and it's like, come on.
But their middle relief has struggled, the Dodgers.
They're closers. Yeah, ending the games have been awful.
And, the same is true for the Yankees. Like, you look at the Yankees yesterday, they were leading Boston for the vast majority of that game, and then Boston eventually broke through and got it to the bullpen, and then suddenly the Red Sox, and boom, the Red Sox win. Now,
Yankees had a chance, bases loaded, bottom of the ninth, didn't score. First team in MLB history in the playoffs to not do that.
to not score when you start out with bases loaded?
No outs in the bottom of the ninth inning, yeah.
Right now, by the way, bottom 4, Guardians, Tigers tied at a game apiece. There's nothing like daytime playoff baseball, right? It's just the best.
You mean tied at 1?
What'd I say?
A game apiece?
Sorry, yeah, 1-1, yes. In that series, Detroit leads 1-0.
Yep.
Who are you rooting for in that series?
It doesn't really matter to me. I like both those teams.
All right, who are you rooting for? Let me give you the who are you rooting for in the Boston-New York series?
Boston.
Obviously, you're rooting for the Reds. Padres, Cubs, who are you rooting for?
Padres.
Why?
I cannot stand Cubs fans.
Really? What do you got against Cubs fans?
They're awful.
Nah, Cubs fans are cool.
No, Jake. Have you met Mark Dykton?
Here's what I've always said about Cubs fans, and it's not a popular opinion. I truly believe it, though. Said it at the time. I'm going to repeat it again.
They're obnoxious. That's mainly the big thing.
When the Cubs, okay, Eddie, you have made my proclamation that was the most hated that I've ever made on radio, and you just justified it right there. We're going on almost 10 years ago that I said it, and the pitchforks came out, and the emails came, and the letters came, and the text messages came, and the tweets came. But at the time, I said, I'm right. I know I'm right. And what you just said right there proved me correct. I'll recap it and get your critique of my proclamation that now a decade later, Eddie Garrison has finally verified. I'll do it next. So back in 2016, the Cubs were knocking on the door. And my parents are diehard Cubs fans. As a matter of fact, my dad is in the steel business and grew up in Indianapolis. Both of my parents did. And my dad worked at, matter of fact, where is now Sullivan Hardware at 71st and Keystone. That was Jordan Pharmacy. Joe Jordan was the pharmacist. Joe Jordan was the pharmacist that wrote the Indianapolis 500 song. The 500, the 500, the greatest event of the... That song was written in a contest by Joe Jordan, who my dad worked for at the time. And so my dad was working through high school as a soda jerk. I always feel bad about saying that. A soda bartender sounds weird, though. And that's when he met my mom, and then ultimately they got married, and my dad got into the steel business and got a job with a steel company out of Chicago, actually the region, but they lived on the south side of Chicago. Heck yeah. Matter of fact, it's interesting that, and I've told this story once on Beyond the Bricks, Joe Jordan invited my dad, because my dad was a really big, loved music, invited my dad to the record release of that song, and my dad kept declining, and then finally Joe Jordan, as my dad's boss, and my dad was a high school kid, but my dad didn't have a lot of money, and Joe Jordan showed up with a suit for my dad and said, I realize the reason you don't want to come to the event is because you don't have a suit. So my dad's always said that the very first suit he ever got was because of the 500 song, which I just always thought was cool because of what the 500 means to me. But at any rate, when my parents lived in Chicago, my mom was a young mother, and the Cubs, of course, daytime baseball. And that was the summer of '69 when the amazing Mets came roaring back and took it from the Cubs. My parents have been diehard Cubs fans ever since. And I grew up a Reds fan. But the one thing about the Cubs, when I was a little kid and my parents would tell me about the Cubs, my dad's like, the Cubs, the lovable losers, the Norman Rockwell painting of the lovable losers and all of those things, right? And with all of that, I kept saying in the summer of 2016, and in particular in the fall of 2016, as the Cubs were getting closer and closer, I said on the radio, Eddie, and people went crazy towards me. And I said, be careful. Because while I know it would be unbelievable if the Cubs are to actually win the World Series, it would be amazing, don't get me wrong. But be careful what you wish for, because if they are to win the World Series, they lose their identity. And if they win the World Series, they then go from being the fan base that no one could ever possibly think to say anything negative about, because
the lovable losers.
They were the lovable losers. And then, but I was like, but as soon as you win a World Series, then you automatically just become another obnoxious fan base. And there is a magic about Wrigley, no question about it, although I wish they put the Torco billboard back up in right field. But there's a magic about Wrigley in daytime baseball and the rooftops and all of it. And, urinal troughs and, all of it, right? There's a magic about it, no question. And the neighborhood itself, when you go up to a game up there and you think to yourself, like, when you go to a Cubs game and you're around Wrigley Field, you automatically feel like a kid, because it feels like, because it's daytime baseball and you feel like you're skipping school or whatever. I mean, there is a magic and a mystique about it. There's no doubt. But now that they've won it, their fan base, Eddie, you just said it.
They're obnoxious. I mean, they were obnoxious before they won, but
you let them get away with it because they never had anything to cheer about, right?
It was like, yeah, you guys can keep cheering all you want. You've never won anything. Come on. Talk when you've won.
But they're pretty good, right?
They're okay.
They're more than okay. They're pretty good.
They're okay, yeah.
If you were to handicap right now, putting your heart aside, legitimately in your mind, the favorites now for the World Series are who?
I still think it's the Dodgers.
Hard to argue that.
Track record of the recent, last 3 to 5 postseasons would say that a team that, like the Dodgers, they have a lot of great talent, and you don't have to the week off or the extended time off from the wild card to the divisional series. You're not waiting on to figure out who you're playing. You're able to just go out there kind of playing, pick up right where you left off and start game number one to the next series. That's always been an advantage, in my opinion, versus like Milwaukee or Philly now who get some time off. I will say it's pretty close with Philly, though.
Milwaukee is interesting. I agree on Philly.
I just think this could be the year where they finally get back on the mountain.
I can't disagree with that. Milwaukee's interesting to me because they've been probably the most consistently good team. You know what I mean? I mean, the whole year they've been very, very good, and yet there's nothing about them that really jumps out at you, right?
They are just a fundamentally sound team. They timely hit. They've got good pitching. They play really, really good defense. They don't shoot themselves in the foot by committing a lot of errors. They make spectacular plays defensively. They run the bases the right way. They take the extra base when they can. Like, they do everything that you have to do when you're a team like Milwaukee. You don't have a lot of players that you have on a high payroll. And
baseball postseason's crazy, though. You just never know.
Like the Red Sox could be an under the radar pick.
How about the Blue Jays?
I still got questions. Their pitching to me is worrisome, specifically starting pitching. They have Shane Bieber, but outside of that, they have a lot to be desired.
Eddie went straight Tim Kirchin there with me.
You know, the funny thing about the Blue Jays, in games in which the left-handed starter is playing on a Tuesday after 4:30, their BPI launch angle.
What? Okay. J&V is here. Is he here or is he on the road today?
He is here. He's on the road the rest of the week, though.
J&V is here. We will do the crossover brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air, love-hvac.com. We'll do it next. You know my question I ask every time, Eddie.
I don't know. I haven't watched it in a while.
J&B will know when he gets in here. Okay, I think it's the first day of school. Isn't that what we determined? When is this played in Fast Times at Ridgemont High? We got the beat is the opening of the movie, and then the first day of school, I think, as Brad drives in is when this plays, right? Raised on the Radio is played when he is washing his car.
Yep, it's first day of school.
Okay.
It's when you got the TPs going and somebody is a, you know what, I don't feel comfortable saying on the radio. And
well, someone is.
It's a 4-letter word.
Huh?
It's a 4-letter word. You got Rat trying to drink water and it's spewing all over his jacket.
Somebody else is no. Oh yeah, is it Arnold? Arnold has the gum in his locker, right?
I think so. No, it's Rat.
Rat has the gum in his locker?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you got, I don't know, I forget who it was, who wants to work at All American Burger. He'll have to talk to Dennis
Arnold.
Taylor. That's Arnold?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was the
used
one
to
trying
work
to get his, I think it was his band instrument in the locker.
That's right. Arnold's trying to get his French horn into the locker.
Yeah.
He works at Bronco Burger.
Yeah.
But on the first day of school, that's when he walks up to talk to Brett. Arnold, you want to work at All American Burger?
And then runs into a door because he's checking out the bosom of some girl.
Hold on. First off, I'd like to point out that's the first time since 1952 that bosom has been said on this radio show.
Totally in the zone.
Or this radio station. I mean, really? You could have just said he was checking out a chick, right? He walks right into the door. Arnold is the most underrated character in the movie, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, right?
Yeah.
And how about this, Eddie? When they're waiting in line,
and then you've got Brad rolling in his car, checking out everything, and just smiling.
Of course. So when they're waiting in line to presumably get their schedules, and that is when Arnold comes up and approaches Brad Hamilton to see if he can get him in at All American Burger. Who is the other person that's standing in line that has no, in the regular movie has no speaking role, but I believe in the TV version has a line.
I don't know, but can you name the song of Phoebe Cates coming out of the pool?
Oh, I mean, dude, that's like asking if
I didn't know there was a song.
It's like asking if you can name the Chicago Bowl in 1998 that was the MVP. Moving in stereo, of course. But you honestly, do you know the other actor in Fast Times that's standing? He has no speaking line, but he also works at All American Burger. He's in the back. I think that's where he has a speaking line in the.
Is it Nicolas Cage?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember this.
Nicolas Cage is in there. It really was an Oscar snub, right?
I would agree. Yeah, that's a good one.
I just watched it last night, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and one of the things I noticed at the end of the movie, when Hamilton's working at the Mighty Mart and the guy comes in,
thing that we discussed
to rob it
before.
What's
off
that?
Air. We've discussed this off air, haven't we?
I don't think I've shared this with you.
Okay.
The guy comes in, and he says, "The safe behind the donuts. Want them now!" And whoa! And behind him is a magazine rack. And I got curious because the one magazine that you could make out is Time Magazine. And it has, at first I thought it was Muammar Gaddafi, but it's Manuel Noriega on the cover. So I looked it up, and it's from December of 1981. So I don't know if that means that they filmed it when that like if they literally just rented out a Mighty Mart and filmed it and that happened to be the current magazine, or if they sent somebody out and then 5 months later, you know what I mean, they were filming it. Because I think it was filmed in either late 81 or early 82. But I've gone through, as you know, Eddie, when I've been in L.A., I've gone and found like as many of the legendary filming locations as possible. And unfortunately, that Mighty Mart where Hamilton worked has been torn down and is now like a department store.
Yeah, didn't you FaceTime me from
The Point?
The Point.
Yeah, I did. It's just like it's the Encino, California Little League fields today. Eddie, now that the season is complete,
yep, briefly.
After a year of being the pre- and post-game host of the Indiana Fever broadcasts, and again, Fever conducting exit interviews, I believe, tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning, yep.
And then we're hoping to have Stephanie White on Friday, but it's going to be an interesting offseason for everybody, really, but the WNBA in general, just because the Fever only have, 2 players under contract, maybe 3?
I don't know the exact 2, 3, maybe 4. I don't know what the status of Lexi Hull and Michaela Timpson is, but yes, much like the rest of the league, the Fever don't have a lot of players underneath contract. The 2 that are, Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. How many of the players that were on the roster in the year would you like to see back on the roster?
It's hard
Obviously,
to say
if Lexi is a free agent, you would like to see Lexi Hull back, Sophie Cunningham back.
I mean, okay. I think at this point, Kelsey Mitchell, clearly, right?
Yep.
Sophie Cunningham, I think, is I hate to say expendable, but I think you can somewhat get away, but
I disagree. You got to remember, she was starting over Lexi Hull before her injury.
I thought Odyssey Sims last night was outstanding, right?
Yeah.
And I know, but, that's one that from a depth piece I think you'd like to have, if you could. Natasha Howard and obviously Aaliyah Boston.
Aaliyah's already back. She's underneath contract.
Right.
So
So is Caitlin, right?
Yeah.
But I think, they had so many players that had to come in and fill in and then played well. And, you'd be happy with about any of them, to be honest with you. But I don't know. I'll be curious to see what they do there, just because in the WNBA in general is just kind of at this crossroad after yesterday with the comments about the commissioner and, and now you're going into the collective bargaining agreement and the number of players that are going to be available league-wide. Are there areas where you can upgrade?
Did you see the report by the Sports Business Journal last night? I think it was right at the start of the game, or if not a little bit into it, that Kathy Engelbert, the WNBA commissioner, is going to be stepping down after CBA negotiations.
Well, based on yesterday, one would assume that's almost a certainty.
But why after?
I would imagine because of the new collective bargaining and everything that goes into it, that you want the continuity, that would only muddy those negotiations and everything going into it. I think you get it done and then you move along. That would be my guess. But J&B has arrived. John is loading up, looks like the text groove. Big show
groove. That's all right. Yeah.
It's all right, he says.
It's just like email and just like...
No, I'm sorry. Big show lined up, I said.
Oh, big show, yeah. Yeah, Kirk Morrison, who's on the Raiders radio network, the former NFL defensive player. Going to join, what else? Lance McAllister after the Reds threw BP last night at Chavez Ravine. We'll talk about that in game number 2 coming up later on tonight. So it really is, being a Reds fan, and I'm so accustomed to this, it's like being an Indiana State fan in basketball, because you're going to have, one really surprising, eye-popping, fun season out of about every 10 because of the way things are balanced or the lack of balance. So, I come by it honestly.
I had to not had to snicker. That's the wrong way of saying it, but I did chuckle to myself when I literally was I turned it on, I don't know, mid-second inning or something like that.
Yeah.
And I heard you saying, like, what do you think tonight? Hunter Green, like 10 strikeouts and an earned run. I'm like,
fourth pitch, he gives up a home run, and then, he was.
And that's not, look, in terms of giving one up to Ohtani,
they are
not a unique
fastball hitting team. He's a fastball pitcher, and they don't have as you saw, any difficulty catching up with any of that crap.
Yeah, it was frustrating for certain, but that's why they're serious and you play more than one. But the Fever last night was fun.
Now, is there any other league out there to where you can go from sitting on the couch to championship level in a matter of a month?
I'm telling you, it's
like Odyssey Sims.
It's unbelievable.
Well, that's the only thing.
She was great last night.
Does that go to show you that they can absorb different franchises because there are still players out there that can play at that level?
That's it. It's the fact that it's just not. You know what I mean? It is so nuanced in the fact that you only have half the franchises that other teams do. That, think about if they contracted 17 franchises in the NBA. You know what I mean? Then all of a sudden a TJ McConnell's available. Maybe not McConnell.
You remember the franchises that were contracted?
Oh boy,
the Detroit Shock.
Oh well,
and then they became Tulsa.
Yeah.
Didn't Miami have one called the Soul or the Sol or something like that?
The Miami Soul. There have been a couple that have left and come back, right?
I think so.
Did Cincinnati have a team? Now they're getting one back?
I don't think Cincinnati did. Seattle still does, right?
Yeah, Seattle Storm.
But I thought-
Dallas did not have a team.
Okay.
Had a team, lost it, got it back. Right?
Yeah.
What about Sacramento? They had a team. Do they still?
No.
Yeah,
The
that's
Monarchs.
one.
They
yeah,
did.
the Monarchs. Yeah, that's one.
Yeah. That's the Sacramento Monarchs. Is that not who that was? The
Yeah,
Monarchs?
but they're not still around, are they?
No.
No.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. The Monarchs.
Yeah, the Monarchs.
All right, John's up next. We will be back with you at noon tomorrow, and I thank you for listening to Query and Company.